Chapter 2693. I don't know if the 7 young heroes are satisfied with this way of handling it. Lang Yuma suddenly unsheathed her long blade and coldly said, "If you dare to obey, don't blame this old lady's blade for taking your dog heads." "I dare not." The city lord bitterly smiled. "If I can, I also don't want to help the evildoer. Please rest assured, if this matter cannot be handled properly, this one will bring my own head to see you." After saying that, the city lord left with his people. The guards who had fainted in the pool of blood were also carried away. The whole street was once again restored to peace. Mu Yan and the others were about to enter an inn to rest and buy some clothes. Tomorrow, they will set off for the Lien family. Suddenly, a figure rushed out from the side and threw himself in front of her. He hugged her feet and wailed. "My stall, my treasures, these are all this old man's possessions. You destroyed them for me, how can I live in the future? Compensate, you must compensate me." The 7 of them were startled and looked down at the same time. Only then did they discover that the one who was hugging Lang Yuma was an old man with an unkempt beard and a sloppy appearance. They saw that there were a lot of bloodstains and vegetable leaves on his clothes. He was crying with snot and tears, very sad. Lang Yuma doubtfully said, "I destroyed your stall. Don't tell me you want to act shamelessly." The old man twitched his beard, raised his eyebrows and glared. He pointed behind him and shouted, "Look, look for yourself, my treasured spirit grass, weren't they all destroyed by you?" Lang Yuma looked in the direction of the old man's finger. Sure enough, she found that a stall had collapsed, stained with bloodstains. The basket placed on it, along with the things inside, were all crushed to pieces. Ling Yuxing quickly walked to the basket, lowered his head to pick up a rotten vegetable leaf and sniffed it. The corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. "Fourth sister, this is 3rd grade. 3rd grade black orchid grass is the lowest grade of spirit grass. It doesn't contain much spiritual power. This kind of low-grade spirit grass, generally, only mortals and body refinement stage cultivators would pick it and sell it for money. Even in the Azure Cloud Realm and Azure Blue Realm, few people would look at it, not to mention in the Purple Cloud Realm." When the old man heard this, he immediately shouted, "What's wrong with the 3rd grade black orchid grass? The 3rd grade black orchid grass is also my treasure. Can you not pay for it if you break it?" Ling Yuma frowned and took out 2 high-grade crystal stones from her storage ring. He squatted down and handed it to the old man. "These crystals are for you." The amount of crow orchid grass he could buy with 2 high-grade crystals was enough to cover the entire 4-division city. The old man grabbed the crystal stones and put them in his sleeves. He continued to shout, "No, how can we just compensate with crystal stones? This crow orchid grass was something that this old man, had to go through mountains and rivers to collect with great effort. Do you think that it was only the crystal that was crushed? No, this old man's painstaking effort. How can you just compensate me with crystal stones? You must compensate me with the crow orchid grass." The veins on Lang Yuma's forehead bulged as she pressed her fingers on the hilt of the red lotus soul-stealing blade. She sneered coldly and said, "Old man, you even dare to blackmail me. Do you really think that I can't deal with you?" The old man was so scared that he shrunk his neck back and looked at Lang Yuma with his muddy eyes. Just when Lang Yuma thought that he would be scared away, she saw a scene that made her dumbstruck. "Oh my God! How can a little girl like you do this? Bullying an old man like me?" Chapter 2694. Pingxi. 2. Asking for votes. Tell me, did you crush my black orchid grass? Did you smash my stall? What? Do you think you can get rid of me with just a few crystals? Do you think I'm that kind of person? Hey, hey, hey. Everyone, come and judge for me. A bunch of youngsters bullying a lonely old man like me. I'd rather die than be humiliated. Wah, I don't want to live anymore. Ling Yuma was dumbfounded. She had never seen anyone so shameless before. Seeing that the surrounding people were looking at her, and that the stall was indeed smashed by her, Lin Mingya's eyes widened. Ling Yuma's face turned green and white. She gritted her teeth and said that. You. Do. What? Want. What? 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 The old man wiped away his tears and said, "You've destroyed my stall and the utensils I used to eat. From now on, you'll have to be responsible for my food and lodging." What? Ling Yuma dug her ears. The old man glared at her. Did I say anything wrong? Look at you, little girl. You're so young and pretty. Could it be that you're trying to act shamelessly? Oh, by the way, when you threw him over just now, he hit my leg. Ouch, my leg hurts. Ling Yuma was going crazy. When the old man pounced on her, his legs were very agile. But now, he looked as if his leg was broken. He was playing with her like a monkey. Ling Yuma turned to look at her fellow apprentices. She found that the other 6 were watching the show with great interest. Luo Yu was holding melon seeds and eating them with Ling Yuxing. TSK TSK TSK. Is this what Bai Xia meant by Pingzi? 4th senior sister is so unlucky. Ling Yuxing was more obedient. He said hesitantly, but it was indeed 4th senior sister who smashed the old grandpa's stall. It's natural for her to ask for compensation. Yun Ruhan looked at Ling Yuxing and nodded. The Xiaoyao sect doesn't offend those who don't offend us. It's our fault and we should take responsibility. Yuma was too impulsive just now. She shouldn't have started a fight on the street and hurt the innocent. Ling Yuma was so angry that she fell backwards, and promptly turned her gaze towards Mu Yen and Chu Moli. She knew that these 2 were the smartest people in the entire Xiaoyao school. She was at her wit's end with this old man. Mu Yan takes a deep look at the old man rolling on the ground, then turns her head to meet Chu Moli's gaze. They both saw the deep meaning in each other's eyes. Mu Yan coughed lightly and turned to look at Ling Yuma. Just as he was about to speak, the old man lying on the ground suddenly shouted. All right. Little girl, I won't ask you to take care of me for the rest of my life. I just want you to send me safely to Changyang City. Is that enough? Ling Yuma was stunned and looked down at the old man. You want to go to Changyang City? That's right. This old man has a relative in Changyang City. As long as you take this old man there to find my relative, then we'll call it even. Is that fine? Ling Yuma hesitated for a moment, then finally gritted her teeth. All right, I promise you. Because the old man said that his leg was injured, Ling Yuma squatted down and helped him up. Hey, little girl, wait, this old man's body is covered in mud. Ling Yuma unhappily glared at him. When you rushed over to extort me earlier, why weren't you afraid of dirtying my feet? Saying that, without waiting for the old man to speak again, she directly carried him to a luxurious carriage and helped him into it. Chapter 2695. I have no family. 1. The curtain of the carriage is lifted, revealing 2 pretty girls dressed as maids. Seeing Ling Yuma, both of them show a shallow smile. What's the matter, 4th miss? Ling Yuma, how is my mother? Please rest assured, 4th miss, Madame Lang is very well. She has just eaten and is now taking a nap. Saying that, she also lifts the curtain a little to facilitate Ling Yuma's inspection. These 2 maids are called Shui Lu and Bai Lu. Their appearance is ordinary and unremarkable, but they are very astute and capable. They are also one of the Nether Flame army that followed Mayan all the way from the Yinwu continent. This time, Because they have to bring Lang Wolin with soulless syndrome back to Changyang City, they need people to take care of her at all times. Mayan specially transferred these 2 people from the Tianji battalion. The curtain of the carriage is lifted, and Leng Yuma sees the woman sleeping with her eyes closed. Her bright complexion is the same as yesterday. The glimmer of light outside the carriage shines in, setting off the woman's peaceful and beautiful sleeping appearance. It's as if Leng Wolin is still that fairy Wolin of the past, peerless in style, proud and unrestrained. Leng Yuma lowers her eyes and presses down the sourness in her heart. She doesn't see that the pupils of the old man standing behind her suddenly contract when he sees the sleeping Leng Wolin. The hand that is holding the crystal is tightly clenched. After a low crackling sound, the crystal in the palm of his hand doesn't even leave a bit of powder. Leng Yuma stabilizes her mood, then nods and smiles towards Chui Lu and Bai Lu. I've troubled you. This. She looks back at the old man. By the way, what's your name? The old man lowers his head, not knowing what he's doing. Leng Yuma urges him again, then says with a mischievous smile, Little girl, you are a junior, how can you ask this old man's name? I think you should call me Grandpa. At your age, I think you're too young to be my granddaughter. Dream on. Leng Yuma rolls her eyes. It's not enough that you blackmailed me, now you also want to take advantage of me. The old man, if you can't call me Grandpa, you can also call me Grandpa. No matter what, I'm your elder. Leng Yuma directly turns her head and ignores him. This old man is injured and is resting outside the carriage. You don't need to pay attention to him. After resting in 4 Division City for a day, Mu Yan's group changed to an airship and headed to Changyang City early the next morning. However, it was different from when they thought they could reach Changyang City in 3 to 5 days. After the flying boat flew into the sky, Leng Wolin's face would turn pale and her body would shiver at night. In the end, the 7 of them decided to travel during the day and rest at night. Mother, don't be afraid. Leng Yumo used a cloth to gently wipe the corner of Leng Wolin's mouth. Her voice was gentle as if she was coaxing a child. From now on, Umo will protect you. I will never let anyone take you away from me again. Girl. An old voice suddenly came from the side. Who took your mother away from your eyes? Leng Yumo was shocked and looked at the old man in bewilderment. Why don't you make a sound when you walk? No, what shocked her even more was, the old man was already so close to her, but she didn't notice at all. The old man chuckled and said, Isn't it because you're too focused, little girl? This old man paced back and forth for a long time, but you didn't react at all. Little girl, you haven't answered what I just said yet. Leng Yuma originally didn't want to answer, but when she met the old man's gaze, her heart seemed to be inexplicably stirred by something. She didn't know if it was because the moonlight was too bright, but the old man's originally turbid eyes became so bright. Chapter 2696. I have no family, too. Especially when she glanced at Leng Wolin, there seemed to be something sparkling in her eyes. But when Leng Yuma wanted to take a closer look, there was nothing there. Girl, if you always keep your words in your heart, be careful not to choke yourself. Leng Yuma was silent for a while, then slowly said, My mother was once taken away by force. It was, on a dark night like this, I chased her under the flying boat and desperately shouted for her, but I could only watch her leave. Leng Wolin was now so afraid of riding the flying boat at night. Perhaps it was the scene of being taken away by Willow Valley City that was deeply engraved in her mind. Even if she was now a walking corpse, she still couldn't erase the fear that was engraved in the depths of her soul. Leng Yuma heard the slightly hoarse voice of the old man after a long time. Don't you have any other family? Why? Why don't you ask them for help? I have no family. Leng Yuma sneered and whispered, Those who think my mother is shameful and watch her fall into hell, I don't recognize them as my family. Purple Cloud Realm, Yunlingling Family. In the quaint and elegant long corridor, a man dressed in luxurious purple clothes suddenly flashed and appeared. The man looked to be in his 30s. His skin was fair and his facial features were delicate and refined. But the pressure that overflowed from his body made the people around him tremble. The attendants on both sides hurriedly knelt down and bowed. "Fourth young master." The man ignored them, just stepped in front of the man in the middle of the hall, and hurriedly said, "Big brother, did you just say that there is news of Wolin? Is it true? You're not lying to me." "Xishuan, calm down. It's not that there is news of my little sister, it's just that the Cloud Essence Beast sensed the activation of the Ru Blood Meridians nearby." Ru Blood Meridians was the unique cultivation talent of the Yunlingling family. Except for those who had the direct bloodline of the Ling family, no one could activate it. And this time, the Ru Blood Meridians, sensed by the Cloud Essence Beast, was different from everyone in the Ling family. The biggest possibility was their little sister Ling Wolin, who had been away for decades. Or, "Big brother, tell me, where did the Cloud Essence Beast sense the activation of the Ru Blood Meridians? I'll go look for it now." Ling Yiwei could not help but sigh inwardly as he looked at the usually gentle and elegant young man panicking to the point where he was in a panic. In fact, Ling Zhishuan was not a member of the Ling clan, but was picked up by the old ancestor Ling Yaoshan from the God-refining abyss. In terms of talent, Ling Zhishuan was far stronger than all the direct descendants of the Ling family. The Ling clan of the Yunling Mountains had undergone 3 tribulations. One was the Ling clan's ancestor, Ling Yaoshan. One was Ling Yiwei, the head of the Ling clan. The third one was the adopted son of the Ling family, Ling Zhishuan, who was less than 100 years old but had already entered the tribulation stage. When Ling Zhishuan entered the Ling family, he was only 10 years old and had no cultivation at all. At that time, Ling Wolin was already 18 years old. Ling Zhishuan always liked to follow behind Ling Wolin. If anyone hurt Ling Wolin, he would fight it out with them. Ling Zhishuan always called them big brother, second brother, and third brother, but was never willing to call Ling Wolin sister. Almost everyone in the Ling family knew what kind of feelings he was hiding in his heart, except for Ling Wolin. Later on, winning streaks appeared. Ling Yaoshan firmly disagreed with Ling Wolin being with him. There were many sons in the Ling family, and Ling Wolin was the only daughter, so she was spoiled since she was a child. Chapter 2697. The eldest daughter of the Lian family came back. 1. The opposition of the Ling family aroused her rebellious mentality. No matter what, she had to be with Lian Xing. At that time, Ling Yaoshan was also angry and directly said, "Ling Wolin, if you dare to be with this man, don't recognize me as your father anymore. If you have the ability to leave, don't ever come back. I will pretend that my Ling Yaoshan doesn't have a daughter like you, and the Yunling Ling family doesn't have an eldest daughter." The stubborn little sister left without hesitation and never set foot in the Yunling again. This parting lasted for many, many years. It wasn't that Ling Zhishuan didn't go to Changyang City to secretly visit, but what he saw was the loving scene of Ling Wolin and Lian Xing. From then on, he only knew how to cultivate in seclusion. When they heard the news of their little sister, it turned out to be the adopted daughter of the Ling family, Ling Shuqin, who came to visit as the mistress of the Lian family. At that time, they knew that their little sister, Ling Wolin, left Lian Xing and ran away with her young daughter because of the discord between her and Lian Xing. Ling Shuqin knelt in front of Ling Yiwei and cried, "The Ling family has done me a great favor. I don't want to take my sister's place, but Yuma is still so young. If I don't stay in the Ling family to take care of her, what will she do? Big brother, Yuma was raised by my sister. She hates the Ling family to the bone. Now that she was abandoned by her mother, Yuma, she won't want to see you. Because of Ling Shuqin's words and the fact that Ling Wolin had left, Lian Yuma was hated by the Ling family after all. So in the following years, no one from the Ling family visited the Lian family. But now that the Cloud Essence beast had sensed the Ru bloodline, the first person Ling Yue thought of was not his little sister, but the rebellious little girl he had seen from afar. That was his niece. Big brother. Ling Zhishuan's voice suddenly brought Ling Yue back to reality. He said in a deep voice, "The aura should be coming from the western land. I will go with you." Just as the two were about to walk out of the hall, suddenly a young woman in a white dress embroidered with orchids walked over quickly. A pair of beautiful eyes looked at Ling Zhishuan's face and said with concern, "Fourth young master, you just came out of seclusion, why are you going out again? I've cooked spirit swallow 100 fragrant porridge for you. It's most suitable for replenishing your qi. Out of the way." However, before she could finish speaking, the person in front of her had already disappeared after a cold shout. The woman's complexion alternated between green and white, and she tightly clenched the handkerchief in her hand. Si Qin, don't be sad. Fourth young master didn't mean to treat you badly. He and eldest young master must have received a piece of great news, so they couldn't wait to hurry on their way. Great news? What news? Let me tell you, you definitely won't be able to guess it. It's the first Mississippi. They have found the first Mrs. whereabouts and are rushing over to bring her back. That's great. After so many years, First Miss is finally going to return to our Yunling Mountains. Si Qin suddenly opened her eyes wide. Her face first turned pale, and then suddenly twisted. The western continent of the Purple Cloud Realm, Changyang City, Lian Family Castle. Then it's settled. The marriage between our two families will be set in March next year. In the center of the hall, gift boxes wrapped in red happiness characters were all over the floor. When all the people who came to deliver the engagement gifts had left, Lian Yunxiang walked quickly to Lian Xing, squatted down on his knees and said coquettishly, "Daddy, I don't want to get married. I can't bear to leave you and mother." Chapter 2698. The young lady of the Lian family is back, too. Lian Xing looked at his charming daughter with tenderness in his eyes, but he scolded her, "What a child. I think Liang Rui is a talented man. He has reached the peak of the Golden Core realm at such a young age. His future is limitless. What's more, the marriage between the Liang family and the Lian family was set many years ago." Lian Xing's voice paused. Because he suddenly remembered that when the marriage was set, it wasn't Lian Yunxiang, but Ling Shuqin's eyes darkened when she saw this. As he spoke, a tall and handsome young man walked in from outside. Lian Yunxiang saw him and immediately rushed over happily. "Brother Rui, didn't you go back with uncle and aunt?" Liang Rui reached out and scratched the tip of her nose. "Didn't I promise to take you to Jushan Pavilion for dinner?" Lian Yunxiang immediately smiled charmingly. "Brother Rui is the best." Ling Shuqin said, "I don't know who said she couldn't bear to leave her parents and didn't want to get married, mother." Lian Yunxiang stamped her feet. Okay, I won't say it. Girls are really extroverted." While talking and laughing, he suddenly saw a subordinate stumble in. The expression on his face was as if he had seen a ghost. Master. Lian Xing frowned and shouted sternly, "Why are you so flustered in front of a guest?" He hated people who didn't follow the rules the most, especially in front of outsiders. This was tantamount to a disgrace to the Lian family and his Lian Xing. But the housekeeper didn't seem to understand his expression at all. He just said anxiously, "Master, it's young lady. Young lady is back." As soon as he said this, everyone in the room was stunned. Liang Rui suddenly let go of Lian Yunxiang's hand and couldn't help but exclaim, "Yumo." Lien Yunxiang's face suddenly darkened, and her eyes flashed with jealousy. Lien Xing's face was livid. His figure flashed and suddenly appeared in the outer yard. Lien Xing's pupils constricted slightly when he saw the beautiful girl dressed in red and dressed like a young man. He unconsciously clenched his fists. His memory seemed to have returned to the distant past. When he fell into the quagmire, he saw that beautiful girl who was as beautiful as a god. However, his expression was quickly replaced by anger. You still have the face to appear here. Ling Yuma sneered, do you think I want to come to this damned place again? Lien Xing threw a slap across the air. Evil creature, is this the attitude you should have when speaking to your father? Ling Yuma's face was slapped to the side, and blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. Umo! Liang Rui cried out in alarm. He couldn't help but rush over to support her. His face was full of heartache. Umo, are you all right? Ling Yuma waved her hand and pushed him away. She said impatiently, who are you? Liang Rui's face paled. He gritted his teeth and said, I'm Liang Rui. We've been engaged since we were young. Have you forgotten? Lien Yunxiang was so angry that her eyes were red. She glared at Ling Yuma, wishing that she could rush over and tear her apart. Ling Shuqin's face was also completely gloomy. However, it was only for a moment. It immediately turned into a caring and loving expression. Brother Xing, what are you doing? Umo is your daughter. This time, she came back because she knows she was wrong. That's why she wants to apologize to you. There's no overnight hatred between father and daughter. Can you both just take a step back? Lien Xing's expression eased up a little. Dear readers, the Enchantress of Medicine will usually update after midnight, usually after midnight. It may also be between midnight and 2 o'clock. It's rather late, so it's still recommended that everyone read it the next morning. If something unexpected happens and you can't make it in time for the update, Z will post a notice in the comments section to delay the update. Chapter 2699. Don't you know what kind of person my mother is? However, before Lien Xing could speak again, Ling Yuma's next sentence immediately made him furious. Who said I'm here to apologize? Ling Yuma's lips curled into a cold smile. She glanced at Ling Shuqin and slowly said, I'm here to seek justice for my mother. Lien Xing, what justice? When are you going to accept reality? Your mother. Winning streak. Ling Yuma shouted sternly, interrupting Lien Xing's words, do you still remember the oath you swore when you were with my mother? If she doesn't leave, you won't abandon her. As her husband, you'll protect her forever and won't let anyone hurt her. Otherwise, one would succumb to inner demons, and from then on, one's cultivation would no longer advance. Do you still remember these words? Lien Xing's expression changed at first, then he became even more furious. It was your mother, it was Leng Wuolin who betrayed me first. She abandoned her status as the mistress of the Lien family and eloped with another man. I have never broken an oath. Ling Yuma glanced at Ling Shuqin and sneered, I came to the Lien clan castle today to prove to you that my mother didn't have an affair. She didn't abandon her husband and daughter. Someone framed her. I want to use my identity as Ling Wuolin's daughter to clear my mother's name and find the bastard who framed her. At that time, don't forget, to fulfill your promise. Ling Shuqin shuddered when she was stared at by those eyes that burned with the flames of hatred. She forced a smile. Yuma, I know you've suffered a lot from what happened back then. But everyone in the Lien family castle saw it with their own eyes. Besides, your mother has already left the Lien family for so many years. How are you going to find out the truth? How are you going to make Brother Xing fulfill his promise? Before Ling Shuqin could finish her words, A figure hurriedly ran over from the west courtyard. Seeing Lang Yumo, the man immediately shouted, "Just now, I heard them shouting that the young miss had returned from the courtyard. I didn't believe it. I never thought that this little bastard would actually have the face to come back. Big brother and sister-in-law, your tempers are too good." When this little bastard left, he was already expelled from the Lien family. What? Now that she couldn't go on, she wanted to come back and continue being the young miss of the Lien family. How can there be such a good thing in this world? The person reeked of alcohol. Her neck was stained with rouge, and her clothes were messy. He was clearly a golden core cultivator, but there were bruises under his eyes, and the flesh on his cheeks was drooping. He looked like he had indulged in debauchery. This person was Lian Xing's younger brother, Lian Ning. He was also Lang Yuma's second uncle. Seeing him, Lang Yuma's expression turned completely cold. In fact, the Lian family was originally just a destitute family. Lian Xing's father was just a rogue cultivator at the stage of fasting, and Lian Xing's mother was just a mortal. However, the Lian family produced a freak with extraordinary talent, Lian Xing. His cultivation had already surpassed his father's even though he was still a minor. After he married Leng Wolin, his cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. Now, he was only 100 years old, but he had already reached the tribulation stage. After Lian Xing became rich, he brought his mother and only brother Lianing to his side and fed them with a large amount of pills. However, Lian Xing's mother was a mortal after all. Not long after, her lifespan was exhausted and she passed away. Lianing had become a golden core cultivator because of Lian Xing's pills. However, even though he had become a golden core cultivator, he couldn't change his vulgar, greedy, and lazy nature. Back then, when Leng Wolin was still the mistress of the Lian family, she had disciplined him many times, hoping that he would become better. Chapter 2700. Don't you know what kind of person my mother is? 2. She even found all kinds of treasures for him to cleanse his muscles and marrow. Who knew that not only was Lianing not grateful, but he also hated Leng Wolin in his heart. Ling Shuqin and Lianing hooked up because of Lian Ying's younger brother. Later, Leng Wolin was framed and taken away by Willow Valley Qing. It was also Lianing who caused Leng Wolin's reputation to be ruined in Changyang City. When Lianing met Leng Yuma's gaze, he unconsciously shivered. All these years, as the younger brother of the Lian family fort's master, he had always enjoyed flattery. Leng Yuma, a junior who had been kicked out of the Lian family fort, dared to treat him like this. Lianing flew into a rage. At this time, Ling Shuqin said, Yuma said she came to clear her mother's grievances. Brother Ing, you know what happened that year, almost everyone in the Lian family saw it. But Yuma seems to be unable to accept it. Clear her grievances. Lianing heard this and laughed, ha ha ha, Lian Yuma, are you kidding me? Do you know how many people saw the scene of Leng Wolin rolling on the bed with Willow Valley Qing naked? Do you think we're all blind? The veins on Lian Ying's forehead throbbed and he glared at him. Lianing, shut up. For a proud person like Lianing, it was a great shame for his wife to have an affair with another man. All these years, what he hated the most was people mentioning the name Leng Wolin in front of him. Even when Leng Yuma, the daughter he once loved, was wandering outside, he never thought of finding her. Because as long as he saw Leng Yuma, he would remember the scene of Leng Wolin betraying him. Leng Yuma took a deep breath and looked up at Lianing. Do you really believe that my mother would do such a thing? You and my mother have been together for so many years, don't you know what kind of person my mother is? Have you ever thought that my mother might have been framed? When she said the last sentence, Leng Yuma's voice couldn't help but become hoarse, and a layer of tears appeared in her eyes. It made Lianing in her eyes distant and blurred. She suddenly remembered that not so long ago, Lian Xing wasn't like this, and the Lian family wasn't like this. She remembered that her father had been strict with her since she was young and raised her like a boy, hoping that she would not bring shame to the Lien family. Moreover, after she was injured while cultivating, her father would secretly visit her in the middle of the night with a straight face. Not so long ago, Lianxing also held her and held his mother's hand, and the family of 3 wandered about in the Lantern Festival. At that time, the Lien clan was far from its current glory. Lianxing's cultivation was only at the leaving aperture realm, making it impossible for the Lien clan fortress to become one of the top clans in the Ziyun world. But at that time, Leng Yuma felt so blessed. When did everything start to change? Lianxing's eyes were red and he stared at Leng Wolin. He was so angry that his lips were trembling. Do you think I don't want to believe her? But I saw it with my own eyes. I saw it with my own eyes. Your mother, she slept with another man in our bed. How can I trust her? Say it. Lien Yuma. Speaking until the end, Lianxing's voice was almost hoarse. Do you know what the greatest humiliation to a man is? It was an accident that Shu Qin and I were together. It's not that I don't feel guilty towards your mother. But she used this method to retaliate against me. Did she think about my feelings, or your feelings? Chapter 2701. The truth that makes people regret. 1. Lien Yuma, you only know how to blame me, and treat me, your father, as your enemy. But have you ever thought that the one who was really hurt was not your mother, but me? Leng Yuma closed her eyes, hot tears flowing down her cheeks. Mother was such a proud person, but she was controlled by the heart lock, framed by Ling Shuqin, and questioned and humiliated by her husband, who should have been ashamed of her. What kind of humiliation and despair was that? When she opened her eyes again, there was only determination left in her eyes. I will ask again, if I can prove that my mother was framed, can you fulfill your promise? Can you tell everyone in the Lien family castle, tell everyone in Changyang City, that you wronged her that year? Lianing laughed loudly. Are you dreaming? You saw the truth with your own eyes, how could there be any framing? Are you going to say that my big brother saw wrongly? Haha, unfortunately, there was not only one person who saw your mother's ugly state, but everyone in the Lien family castle. Before Lianing finished speaking, suddenly, a sword light fell in the Lien family courtyard. Liang Rui's father, Liang Jinrong, rushed in. Father, why are you back again? Liang Jinrong did not care about his son, and directly rushed in front of Lianxing. Brother Lien, did you get the explosive news? What news? Fusang City was massacred. Liang Jinrong took a breath, and then threw out a heavy bomb. Lianxing thought he was hearing things. What did you say? Massacred where? Fusang City. It's the impregnable Fusang City that even tribulation passing stage cultivators can't break in. There was one more sentence that Liang Jinrong did not say. Everyone in Changyang City knew that the former mistress of the Lien family castle had cheated. But very few people knew that the person who took Madame Lien away was Fusang City Lord Lu Guqing. First, Lu Guqing rarely appeared in public these years, so not many people knew him. Second, there were not many people who had seen Leng Wolin's so-called adulterer. Coincidentally, Liang Jinrong was one of them. Lianxing naturally knew about it. The hatred of stealing his wife was unforgettable. Of course, Lianxing had thought of going to Fusang City for revenge. However, the rumors about Fusang City made him stop in his tracks. It was a sealed and dangerous place enveloped by a terrifying array. Even though he had already ascended to the transcending tribulation stage, he would most likely die if he entered it. When he heard the news that the entire Fusang City had been massacred, he was momentarily stunned. Who did it? After a long while, Lianxing finally squeezed out his voice. A place that even he didn't dare to step into was actually massacred by someone. Liang Jinrong said slowly, "Have you heard of the unfettered 7 devils?" The 7 unfettered devils were famous throughout the entire cultivation continent. Everyone knew about them. Lianxing frowned. "A few little guys. You want to say that they massacred Fusang City? That's impossible." The name of the unfettered 7 devils had naturally spread to Changyang City. Especially the beautiful city killing god, Jun Mayan. There were many people in Changyang City who were her supporters. But Lianxing had also heard the news that these 7 people were only in their early 20s. For Lianxing, who had already lived for 100 years in the transcending tribulation stage, what unfettered 7 devils? They were just greenhorns. How could he put them in his eyes? Liang Jinrong, brother Lian, this news came from the Killing Luo sect. You also know that the Killing Luo sect is near Fusang City. I heard that the sect master of the Killing Luo sect personally went to Fusang City to take a look. Chapter 2702. The truth that makes people regret, too, asking for votes. It was Fusang City that captured the unfettered 7 devils, but in the end, the female devil Jun Mayan broke the formation, and the whole city was destroyed. When the Lord of Rakshasa's sect arrived, the whole city was left in ruins, and the ground was full of corpses. This news is absolutely true. It has spread throughout the entire Xian West continent, but our Changyang City is at the border of the West continent, so we didn't receive the news. Lianxing inhales a breath of cold air, and his face turns green, red, white, and purple. On one hand, he is very happy that Fusang City was massacred. But on the other hand, a place that even he, a crossing tribulation stage expert, doesn't dare to set foot in, was actually massacred by a few little guys. This is tantamount to slapping his face, showing his incompetence. Liang Jinrong is silent for a while. He looks at his son Liang Rui next to him, and then at Ling Shuqin and Lian Yunxiang. His face shows hesitation. But in the end, he still opens his mouth and says, "Brother Lian, there is something that I don't know if I should say." Ling Shuqin suddenly realizes something, and her eyes reveal a look of horror. The hands hanging by her side also unconsciously start to tremble. At this time, Lianxing's mind is a mess. How could he notice the abnormality of the woman next to him? Hearing this, he can't help but frown. What can't be said between us? Liang Jinrong whispers, after Fusang City was destroyed, some news about it came out. What news? Almost all of the women in Fusang City are outsiders. Some of them are talented, some are beautiful, and some are married. However, these women are all married to Fusang City's male cultivators, who are not very good-looking and have average cultivations. In the past, everyone thought that these women were willing, but this time, the news that came back said what? Lianxing's eyebrows jump heavily. As soon as the words come out, he finds that his voice is sharp. The male cultivators of Fusang City use their great formation that even a crossing tribulation stage cultivator can't break, and refine a powerful magic weapon. Once they wear that magic weapon, the female cultivators will obey the words of the male cultivators of Fusang City, and can't resist at all. Brother Lian, that Willow Valley City is the city lord of Fusang City. Back then, sister-in-law. Fairy Ruolin, could it be that she was also? When Lianxing heard this, he could no longer maintain the calmness on the surface. His legs swayed and he suddenly sat down on the chair. His face turned pale. Brother Xing, are you okay? Ling Shuqin supported Lianxing, but her own eyes were full of shock. Fusang City was actually massacred? The secret of Fusang City had actually been leaked. Damn Willow Valley City, how could it be so useless? He was actually killed by 7 brats. But soon, she calmed down. She looked at Lian Xing with concern, tears welling up in her eyes. Brother Xing, that's great. Does this mean that big sister was wrong back then? Lian Xing's pale face showed a look of grief and remorse. His hands were tightly gripping the armrests of the chair, trembling slightly. Ling Shuqin cried sincerely, big sister didn't take the initiative to hook up with Willow Valley City. It was Willow Valley City who used despicable means to forcibly occupy big sister's body. I knew big sister wasn't that kind of person. She was certainly not taken away by Willow Valley City voluntarily. Hearing this, the sorrowful expression on Lian Xing's face stiffened. Lian Yingying recovered from the shock and immediately snorted, "What the hell?" Fusang City's strength is ranked in the top in the entire Purple Cloud boundary. How could it be destroyed by a few little brats? Chapter 2703. What bullshit news, it can't be a rumor, right? Back then, everyone saw how Ling Wuolin enjoyed herself in bed. Who would believe that she was controlled by Willow Valley City? Besides, so what if she was controlled? Her body was already occupied by Willow Valley City. In Fusang City, who knows how many men had played with her? My brother is the head of the Lian family fortress, how can he have such a dirty, broken flower? Before Lianing could finish his words, a blood-red saber light suddenly slashed towards him. This saber light was too fast. It was so fast that Liang Jinrong, who was at the peak of leaving body realm, couldn't even react. Boom! Lianing was flipped over and slammed into a pillar. His body couldn't help but tremble. After a long time, he spat out a mouthful of blood and a few teeth fell out. Ling Yuma held the red lotus soul-seizing saber in her hand and walked towards Lianing step by step. If you have the guts, say it again. Lian Yingying looked into her crimson eyes and felt the burning pain in his internal organs. He was scared out of his wits. Big brother, help, help. This bastard is going to kill me, quickly save me. Lianing suddenly came back to his senses. He jumped in front of Lianing and shouted at Ling Yuma, "Lian Yuma, what are you doing? Is he your uncle, your elder?" "Elder?" Ling Yuma sneered, "What kind of elder is he?" "A bastard who repeatedly slandered my mother, I just want to chop him into pieces." A bone-chilling gaze with thick killing intent swept across Lianing, causing him to shiver and almost wet his pants. He didn't understand. This Ling Yuma was just a little girl in her early 20s. Back then, he also saw her miserable state with his own eyes. How could she have such a terrifying power now? Lianing suppressed his anger and said, "This matter hasn't been investigated clearly." Lianing isn't talking nonsense. Haven't been investigated clearly? Then how do you want to investigate clearly? Ling Yuma sneered and gritted her teeth. The method of abusing women in Fusang City is now spread throughout the Western land. My mother was framed. You're the one who broke your promise. Shut up. Lian Xing shouted. I will naturally investigate this matter. If it is proven that your mother was framed, I will send someone to bring her back. Ling Shuqin's eyebrows twitched when she heard that. Lian Yunxiang's expression changed drastically. However, Ling Yumo's expression remained indifferent, and after I bring him back. Will you chase this woman out and let my mother continue to be the mistress of the Lian family fort? Lian Xing frowned and didn't have time to speak. Lian Yunxiang couldn't bear it anymore and screamed, "Are you kidding me? My mother is the rightful madam of the Lian family castle. She was the real miss of the Lian family fort. How many people have seen Ling Wuolin being defiled? Why did you bring him back? Is this a disgrace to the Lian family?" Ling Shuqin quickly stopped her. "Yunxiang, don't be rude to your aunt." Saying that, she looked at Ling Yumo sincerely, her eyes flashing with tears. "Yumo, I know you hate me. If my sister can come back, so what if I ask to leave the Lien family fort? You don't know how much I've longed to see my sister all these years. She wiped her tears with a handkerchief and made a gesture before continuing, it's just that this news is too strange. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2704. Although Brother Ying's words are harsh, there is some truth to them. Although there are no tribulation stage cultivators in Fusang City, their status in the entire Purple Cloud realm is higher than our Lien family. Why is that? It's because Fusang City's formation is recognized as the strongest formation in the past 1,000 years. Think about it, Fusang City has been unbreakable for thousands of years. How could it suddenly be broken by 7 young people with only gold core and nascent soul cultivation? Ling Shuqin said and turned to Liang Jinrong, Master Liang, I know you think that the source of the news is reliable. But don't you think it's still a bit strange? It just so happened that Yuma came home today and said that she wanted to investigate her sister's affair. It just so happened that you received the news of Fusang City being broken, and even more coincidentally, the truth of the so-called Fusang City female cultivators being controlled. Could it be that all of this is just a coincidence? These words were reasonable, and Liang Jinrong immediately revealed a look of hesitation. Lian Xing's expression changed and he glared at Leng Yuma, evil creature, in order to clear your mother's name, you actually did such a thing. Leng Yuma did not look at Lian Xing but looked at Leng Shuqin with a faint smile, you mean, the news about Fusang City is all fake? Ling Shuqin looked like she wanted to say something but stopped. Her eyes were filled with pity and regret. Yuma, I know you want to reverse the verdict for your mother. You want your mother to return to the Lien family castle in glory so that you can become the eldest daughter of the Lien family again. But you shouldn't have used this method, and you shouldn't have told such a clumsy lie. I said it, I said that this little bastard is lying. Lian covered his swollen cheek and said indignantly, Big brother, this little bastard wants to return to the Lien family and continue to be the eldest daughter of the Lien family. How could she think of such a dirty method? She even dared to play with you, her father. How evil is her heart? Who in the Lien family is as shameless as her? I even suspect that this Lian Yuma is really a child of the Lien family. Lian Xing's face became more and more livid. He looked at Leng Yuma coldly, and even the last trace of warmth was frozen. Ling Shuqin said, Little brothering, Yuma is just too young, so she made a mistake. Big sister also loves brother Xing. She got together with Lu Guqing only because she was jealous that I got together with brother Xing. But before that, she must have loved brother Xing wholeheartedly. How can you suspect that Yuma isn't a child of the Lien family? If Ling Shuqin was panicking for a moment just now, she had completely calmed down now. Thinking about it carefully, this matter was indeed a strange coincidence. Why was there news of Fusang City being massacred the moment Leng Yuma arrived? How could the entire Fusang City be annihilated by 7 youngsters? Even if it was true that Fusang City had been destroyed, how could a little girl like Leng Yuma know the secret? How could he swear that he would expose the truth of the past? This must be a trick that Leng Yuma came up with. She deliberately let the Killing Luo sect spread the news, wanting to trick her side into a mess. After not seeing her for so many years, this little slut had really learned to be obedient. He had almost fallen into her trap. Thinking of this, Ling Shuqin became more and more calm. In the midst of Lian Ying's clamor, tie this little bastard up, she looked at Leng Yuma with a tolerant face. Yuma, I know you are not the bad child that little brothering said. Bookmark easy to read. Chapter 2705. White Lotus Flower, 3. With excellent singing and composition, you're lying because you want us to bring your mother back from Fusang City, right? Is sister not having a good time in Fusang City? Is she regretting betraying brother Xing? It doesn't matter, as long as sister regrets, we can bring her back. The Lien family castle is so big, there will be a place for her to stay. Lianing spat and shouted, "Sister-in-law, you're too kind-hearted. How did that woman scold you back then, and you still want to bring her back? Also, this little bastard is full of lies, and with that kind of attitude towards you, why are you still talking nicely to her?" Ling Shuqin shook her head firmly. "When I married into the Lien family, I swore that I would take good care of you, Ma. You, Ma, don't be stubborn, okay? As long as you apologize to your father, we will be a family in the future. Little aunt will definitely take good care of you." Ling Yuma, who had been watching their performance coldly from the side, was so disgusted that she wanted to vomit at this moment. And looking at Lien Ying's performance, the last bit of affection in her heart also disappeared. "Apologize?" Ling Yuma sneered, "I didn't do anything wrong, what do I have to apologize for?" There was no anger from embarrassment on her face, no flustered and exasperated, only contempt and ridicule. "Are you so sure that the news about Fu Sang City is fake? Heh, what if I can prove that all the news is true?" Her gaze turned to Lianing, and she questioned again, "If Fu Sang City is really massacred, and those female cultivators in Fu Sang City are really controlled and persecuted, will you fulfill your promise?" Ha 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 ha. Without waiting for Lianing to get angry, Lianing already laughed. "Stupid girl, you've lied so much that you believe it yourself, right? You say you can prove it, then tell me, how do you prove it? Let Big Brother fly to Fu Sang City now to see if it was destroyed." But even if Fu Sang City is really destroyed, and there's nothing left, who can prove that Lang Wolin was framed? The so-called unfettered 7 devils. Ha ha ha, that depends on your ability to find them to the Lien family castle. Lien Yunxiang sneered and said, "I heard that the unfettered 7 devils have always been secretive about their whereabouts. No one can easily find them." "Lien Yuma, the proof you're talking about, don't tell me you're going to stay in the Lien family for 3 to 5 years to find him. Hee, you should have said so earlier that you couldn't live on if you were too down and out on the outside. The position of the Lien family's eldest young miss may not be yours, but the Lien family still has some leftovers for you." These words were harsh and unpleasant to hear. Liang Rui couldn't help but turn to look at her and frown. The fiancé that he thought was gentle and demure seemed to be a little different from what he had imagined. As for his original fiancé, Liang Rui's gaze turned towards Lang Yumo. His eyes were filled with tenderness, but he could not help but gently shake his head. Even Umo was more to his liking. However, if he were to marry her, he would become a laughingstock. She had a mother who could not be seen by others. Lien Yunxiang naturally saw Liang Rui looking at Lang Yumo with deep affection and pity. Her face instantly contorted. She took a step forward and was about to humiliate Lang Yumo. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside the gate of the Lien family fortress. Screams rose and fell outside the gate of the Lien family fortress. "Oh my God, am I seeing things? Why are they here? Oh. I can see the real person, I'm going to faint from happiness." This noise made Lien Xing frown. Chapter 2706. Who is Raging Flame Mad Blade Lang Yumo? Begging for tickets, Lianing was already shouting loudly, "Those outside, what's with all the noise? This is the Lien family fortress, outsiders." Before he could finish his words, the Lien family fortress's door was kicked open. Following that, 6 figures swaggered in from the open door. No, it wasn't just these 6 figures that entered the Lien family fortress's door, there were also the densely packed Changyang city commoners that followed from the outside. These 6 people, 5 men and 1 woman, each had their own merits. They were clearly squeezed in the crowd, but just based on their elegant demeanor, the Lien family unconsciously cast their gazes on them. Especially the girl in the snow-white dress who walked at the back. Her skin was as delicate as porcelain, sparkling and translucent like ice jade under the sunlight. Her exquisite facial features were as if they had been carved by the heavens with their exquisite craftsmanship. There was not a single part of her that was imperfect, and there was not a single part of her that was not beautiful. Especially that pair of watery, almond-shaped eyes. Just one look at them would cause one to be intoxicated. For a moment, Lian Ning, who was originally shouting, stopped shouting and looked at the girl in white in a daze. Even Ling Xuqin and Lian Ning looked at the newcomers in astonishment, unable to recover for a long time. While they were still in a daze, the 6 people had already walked to Leng Yuma's side. 3 on the left, 3 on the right, stood on either side of Leng Yuma. There were 7 people in a row, men and women, some holding swords and some holding knives, 6 standing, 1 in a wheelchair. Although they were all different and had random postures, when they appeared together, it was as if they had instantly merged into one. Lianing suddenly came back to his senses. Who are you? However, before he could finish his words, the commoners that rushed in from behind suddenly let out a tsunami-like roar. Ah, the Xiaoyao 7, the Xiaoyao 7 have merged. To be able to see this scene in my lifetime, it's worth it even if I die. I was wondering why, Raging Flame Mad Blade, Leng Yuma was missing, so she was here. Whoa, sure enough, only when the Xiaoyao 7 stand together is the most beautiful scene. God Jun, I love you, please take a look at me. Xiaoyao, if not me, who else? Be free and unfettered, dominate the world. Lian Xing's questioning voice stopped abruptly, and the dignified expression on his face froze at that moment. The other members of the Lian family looked as if they had seen a ghost. All of them widened their eyes in disbelief at the scene before them. No. Impossible. What were those people shouting outside? Xiaoyao 7. Who? Who were the Xiaoyao 7? Who is the Raging Flame Blade, Leng Yuma? Ling Xuqin's gaze stiffly swept past Yun Ruhan and Mu Yan's faces, and finally landed on the woman in red who was holding the red lotus soul-stealing blade. You are. No, this is impossible. How is this possible? Ling Yuma looked at Ling Xuqin with a face full of ridicule. This woman had been wearing a mask since she came back, and at this moment, she could no longer hold it in. Her gaze turned to Lian Yingying, who was completely dumbfounded. You just said that if we want to prove that the news from Fusang City is true, we have to find the unfettered 7 devils. Now that the 7 of us are all here, do you want us to personally describe the news from Fusang City? Or, do you want to personally take a look at the photographic talisman in my hand? Lian Yingying's body suddenly trembled, his gaze fell on Leng Yuma's face, and he screamed, unfettered 7 devils. You, how can a bastard like you be one of the unfettered 7 devils? Are you angry at this fake White Lotus stepmother? Don't worry, tearing the White Lotus is the best. As for how to tear it, please see the next chapter. Good night. Chapter 2707. The last illusion shattered. 1. As soon as the shout ended, a puppet fell from the sky and smashed into Lian Ying's face. With a loud bang, Lian Ying's front teeth were smashed clean. Fresh blood gushed out of his mouth like a fountain. Lian Ying jumped up and down in pain. Just as he was about to shout, a fist smashed towards his nose. With a cracking sound, a piercing pain came from his nose. His head felt like it was smashed. Lian Ying couldn't hold on anymore. His eyes rolled back and he fainted. Luo Yu withdrew the puppet. You dare to call us the unfettered 7 devils in front of us? Do you really think we like this name? Qin Jiu retracted his fist and said in a muffled voice, scold 4th junior sister. You can't. You're a bad person. You have to be beaten. Lianxing couldn't care less about his younger brother. His eyes stared at the 7 excessively young men and women in front of him. These 7 people, including his daughter Lian Yuma, were all in their 20s. In the Shuzhen continent, 25 years old was considered an adult. These people were really too young. But now, Lianxing used his divine sense to investigate carefully and found that these 7 people had all reached the nascent soul stage. Even his daughter had reached the 5th level of the nascent soul stage. How was this possible? When she left home, her cultivation was almost half crippled and she hadn't even reached the fasting stage. Over the years, when Lianxing thought of his daughter, it wasn't that he didn't feel heartache, but more of it was the anger of his authority being challenged. He believed that Lian Yuma's days outside must have been very miserable. Without the help of resources, her cultivation couldn't increase and she could only be bullied outside. Thinking that Lian Yuma must be hiding somewhere crying and regretting disobeying her father, Lianxing felt an indescribable sense of joy. However, the reality in front of him slapped him in the face. That unfilial daughter who disobeyed him left home for so many years. Not only did she not have a bad life, her strength increased by leaps and bounds. Lianxing took a while to suppress his surging emotions. He stared at Leng Yuma and said, "You are the unfettered 7 devils." Leng Yuma didn't answer his question, but said indifferently, "Master Lian, I asked you the question first. I've already proven that my mother is innocent. How are you going to fulfill your promise?" Lianxing frowned. "I'm your father. Is this how you talk to your father? Did you really destroy Fusang City?" Leng Yuma sneered, "Seems like even Patriarch is unwilling to believe it." Little 7. "All right." Luo Yu responded, nimbly taking out a photographic talisman and activating it. Soon, the scene of Fusang City turning into ruins appeared in front of everyone. Even though they were mentally prepared, some people still couldn't help but gasp. Ling Shuqin's face was deathly pale, her hands tightly gripping the embroidered handkerchief. Lianxing looked at the scene in the photographic talisman and was similarly shocked. After a long while, he suddenly turned his head to look at Leng Yuma. "Fusang City was really massacred by you guys. How did you break the Great City Barrier Array? What about the formation disk?" Leng Yuma's gaze became increasingly gloomy and cold. "Is that all Patriarch Lian cares about?" Lianxing's expression changed, as if he just remembered something at this time. He gritted his teeth and said after a while, "Where's your mother? Is she still alive?" Leng Yuma said, "I'm really sorry for troubling Patriarch Lian. Of course my mother is still alive." The veins on Leng Shuqin's forehead twitched violently, her eyes flashing with intense hatred. Chapter 2708. The last illusion shattered, too. The current situation was really bad for her. She never thought that Lian Yuma, who had left the Lian family in a sorry state, would become one of the famous unfettered 7 devils. Fusang City was slaughtered by them and even that bitch, Ling Wolin, was saved by them. If that bitch, Ling Wolin, knew the truth, Ling Shuqin sucked in a breath of cold air, but she quickly adjusted her state of mind. The rims of her eyes reddened and tears rolled down her cheeks. She looked really sincere and joyful as she cried. At least, it looked much more real than Lianxing. "Yuma, is sister really still alive?" That's great, that's great." Ling Shuqin rushed over and wanted to hold Leng Yuma's hand. "Yuma, you child, since you've already saved your mother, why didn't you bring her back? If you brought your mother back, why would Brother Sheng and I suspect you?" Ling Yuma took a step back to avoid her hand and said with a smile that was not a smile, "Bring my mother back and let you frame her and humiliate her." "Yuma, why would you think that?" Ling Shuqin had a hurt expression and was about to cry. "I was raised by the Ling family. To me, the Ling family is my benefactor and my sister is the person I respect and love the most. I only hope that she is well. How could I frame her and humiliate her? The person you respect and love the most. Ling Yuma's face was full of disgust. The way you treat someone well is to steal her husband. Frame her for cheating. So that you can openly occupy her position. Ling Shuqin's whole body was on the verge of collapse. Her face was pale as if she had suffered a great blow. Brother Xing, I didn't. I'm not that kind of person. She cried and threw herself into Lian Xing's arms. I never thought of stealing my sister's husband. I just love you too much and can't help it. But I never thought of destroying your family. As long as I can look at you from afar and look up to you, that's enough. How could Yuma say that about me? Lian Xing looked at the woman crying in his arms and felt his heart ache. Ripples that hadn't appeared in a long time surfaced in his heart. In fact, in terms of appearance, Ling Shuqin was inferior to Ling Wolin. Her birth, temperament, and talent couldn't be compared to Ling Wolin at all. But Ling Wolin was too strong. Her cultivation was higher than his, her talent was better than his, and she had seen him at his worst. Lian Xing always felt that he was inferior in front of her. What made Lian Xing even more embarrassed was the Yunlingling family. Back then, he had knelt down in front of the Ling family's old man and begged to marry Ling Wolin, but he was chased out like a dog. Didn't the people from the Yunlingling clan look down on him and despise him for being down and out in the past? At that time, although Lian Xing didn't say anything, he swore in his heart that one day he would stand out. One day, he would make the Ling family beg him to go back and be their son-in-law. For the sake of the Yunlingling family, he had quarreled with Ling Wolin several times. Ling Wolin was pampered by the Ling family since she was young. She had a stubborn and arrogant personality and would not give in to him at all. Sometimes, he would even say things like, Lian Xing, have you forgotten how you survived when all your bones and tendons were shattered? How did you continue to cultivate? I used the Ling family's treasure, the ice jade marrow bone, to replace your bones. Without the Ling family, how could you have the ice jade marrow bone? Without the ice jade marrow bone, how could you be where you are today? Chapter 2709. The last illusion shattered. 3. Now, what right do you have to look down on the Ling family? Lian Xing was so angry that he stormed off. He felt that his dignity had been stepped on and he had lost all face. At this time, he saw Ling Shuqin, who had come to visit Ling Wolin, in the backyard. It was different from Ling Wolin's forcefulness. Ling Wolin was gentle and considerate. When he mentioned the Ling family, Ling Shuqin did not show any signs of disapproval. Instead, she held his hand and said softly, Brother Xing, in my eyes, you are the best man in the world. Whoever marries you is the luckiest person in this life. Father must not understand how outstanding you are, that's why he objected to my sister marrying you. As Ling Shuqin spoke, she moved closer to him and lifted her little face. Her limpid eyes were filled with tenderness and admiration. Big brother Xing, don't blame big sister. She's been spoiled since she was young, so she's got the temperament of a spoiled young lady. Don't take her words to heart. Brother Xing, you don't know how much Shuqin admires you. If I was the one who married you, I would have fainted from happiness. But very quickly, her face was filled with sadness and panic. She wanted to step back. What did I say? Brother Xing, just pretend that I didn't say anything. I'm leaving. But just as she took a step, she suddenly slipped and fell into Lian Xing's arms. With a warm and fragrant body in his arms and a pair of eyes full of tenderness, Lian Xing could not help but hug her. Waking up from his memories, Lian Xing looked at Ling Shuqin with even more pity. On the contrary, his eyes were filled with anger. Lian Yuma, why aren't you kneeling? How can you talk to your mother like that? The pressure of a tribulation passing cultivator spread out, causing the faces of those who came to watch to turn pale. Some of the weaker ones even fell to the ground. Those who originally wanted to pay their respects to their idol did not dare to stay in the Lien family and scattered. But the arrival of the 7 unfettered warriors in Changyang City and the fact that Leng Yuma was the daughter who was chased out by the Lien family spread like wildfire. Lien Xing raised his hand, and the gates of the Lien family fortress slammed shut. He looked angrily at Lien Yuma, but was shocked to find that none of these little guys, who were only at the original infant stage, were deterred by his pressure. Leng Yuma looked at him with a sharp gaze and said word by word, "First, I have a mother. Who does she think she is? Is she worthy of me calling her mother? Secondly, my name is Leng Yuma, not Lien Yuma." Back then, the eldest daughter of the Lien family had already been personally announced by you to sever ties with her. "Patriarch Lien, please don't call me by the wrong name again." Lien Xing's complexion was ashen, but he thought of something and endured it. He took a deep breath and said, "Yuma, I know you have complaints in your heart, but even if there was something fishy about what happened in the past, it was the conspiracy of Willow Valley City. What does it have to do with Shu Qin? After all, she is now the matriarch of the Lien family. Naturally, she is worthy of you calling her mother. Also, where is your mother? Since you've already rescued her from Fusang City, why don't you bring her back quickly?" Leng Yuma looked at him coldly. "Bring my mother back. How do you plan to settle her?" Lien Xing was stunned, and his face turned a little green. He gritted his teeth and said after a long while, "The little cold bamboo garden has always been empty. Bring your mother to live there first. I will send someone to serve her." Chapter 27:10. Third senior brother's plan, asking for votes. Hearing this, Leng Yuma's whole body trembled with anger. "So, you mean, you know that she didn't do anything wrong, and you know that she was framed, but you still want to lock her up in the cold bamboo garden without a name, and let this vicious woman continue to be the mistress of the Lien family? What do you think my mother is?" Lien Xing felt a little guilty, but being questioned by his own daughter like this, his complexion didn't look good. "Lien Yuma, what kind of attitude is this? Am I not doing this for the reputation of the Lien family? Even if your mother was framed, it is a fact that she has been in Willow Valley City all these years. I am the dignified master of the Lien family, a cultivator at the tribulation stage. If I let a woman who has lost her innocence become the mistress of the Lien family, have you ever thought about where I would put my face? What's more, all these years, Shu Qin has done her best for this family." Ha 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 ha. Before Lien Xing could finish his words, he was interrupted by Leng Yuma's laughter. Lien Xing angrily said, "Evil creature, what are you laughing at?" As she laughed, her voice became more and more hoarse, and crystal-clear tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes. She was really stupid, really. She actually had a glimmer of hope for this so-called father, Lien Xing. She actually had a glimmer of hope for this fickle, ungrateful, and selfish man. How stupid was she? "Fourth senior sister, are you okay?" Luo Yu worriedly pulled her hand. "You still have us." Chu Moli chuckled and said, "I've said it before. Just follow my plan." Mu Yan also pursed her lips and chuckled. Although third senior brother's method has always been a bit abnormal, this time, I also agree. The voices of the few people were transmitted secretly. If Lien Xing didn't deliberately expand his divine sense to listen, he wouldn't be able to hear them. Leng Yuma closed her eyes. When she opened them again, there was no longer anger, disappointment, or pain in her eyes. The fiery red-clothed girl once again returned to the unrestrained and unrestrained, raging flames blade, who hated evil as if it was her enemy. She curled her lips and indifferently said, "Since you don't intend to chase this woman away, my mother will definitely not return to the Lien clan." As for the cold bamboo garden, since my mother doesn't live there, my martial brothers and I will live there. Is that all right? Lien Xing frowned. After all, your mother is a woman of the Lien family. How can we let her stay outside? What would we say if word got out? Tell me where she is, and I'll bring her back now. Ling Yuma didn't even bother with him. Instead, she stretched her body and slowly walked in front of Ling Xuqin. Don't you like to show off your sisterly love with my mother? Didn't you say that you married into the Lien family to take care of me? Ling Xuqin forced a smile and said, Yuma, you really misunderstood. However, Ling Yuma did not wait for her to finish speaking and waved her hand. All right, this time I will give you a chance to take care of me. The little cold bamboo garden had not been inhabited for a long time, so it must not be very clean, right? You will be in charge of the cleaning inside and the daily food and lodging of us 7 brothers. Remember. Ling Yuma hooked up the corners of her lips and shook her finger. With a smile that wasn't a smile, she said, in order to show your sincerity, you must do these things by yourself. Don't delegate people. Otherwise, I will firmly believe that your words about sisterly love are all bullshit. The expression on Ling Xuqin's face could hardly be maintained. The muscles on her cheeks kept twitching. Recently, the server has been lagging quite a bit at night. In order to avoid errors during the upload process, the update has been pushed from midnight to morning. Chapter 27:11. Ling Yuma, the madwoman. 1. Ling Yuma has already turned to Mayan and the others. Let's go to the backyard to rest. Oh, that's right, I remember that there are a lot of purple smoke fruits in the backyard. They taste very good, I'll treat you guys to some. Lien Yunxiang's expression changed when she heard that, and she screamed, You're not allowed to eat, those purple smoke fruits are mine. Mother said that they are my dowry, none of you are allowed to touch them. Lien Yunxiang bared her fangs and brandished her claws at Ling Yuma, but before she could get close, she was already grabbed by the collar. Slap 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 slap. 4 consecutive slaps landed on her face, and Lien Yunxiang was almost stunned. She stared blankly at Ling Yuma, almost not daring to believe what just happened. Until she felt a stinging pain on her face, her teeth loosened, and her entire face swelled up, she cried out, You dare to hit me. You slut, you dare to hit. Ling Yuma grabbed her collar and ruthlessly slammed it on the ground. She stepped on her chest and looked down at her, unhurriedly saying, Not only do I dare to hit you, I also dare to kill you. Do you believe it? Lien Yunxiang saw the sly smile on her face, and the surging killing intent in her eyes. She was scared out of her wits. Mother, father, save me. Save me. This madwoman, she wants to kill me, she wants to kill me. Ling Xuqin's complexion changed, and she was about to rush over. Yunxiang. Xingji, quickly save Yunxiang. The anger in Lien Xing's eyes has accumulated to a certain extent. He raised his palm, condensing a spiritual storm in his palm, and was about to smash it towards Ling Yuma. He heard a clear and sweet female voice, like the sounds of nature, Master Lien, whether you want to smash it or not, you have to think clearly. Have you already forgotten the promise you made to 4th senior sister's mother? For a lifetime, I won't leave her, and I won't allow anyone to hurt her. If I violate the oath, I will be haunted by my inner demon, and I will never be able to advance. Before, Master Lien didn't fulfill the oath, so you can pretend that you didn't know the truth and were deceived. But now, the truth is clear. If Patriarch Lien were to go back on his oath, what would the consequences be? Have you thought about it? Lien Xing's pupils shrank, and the spirit storm ball in his hand that he was about to throw out also stopped in midair. Mu Yan continues, for a mother, hurting her child is 100 times more painful than hurting herself. Patriarch Lien, have you really thought about the consequences of attacking my 4th senior sister? Lian Xing's face turned green and white. Whether it was Lian Yunxiang, Ling Shuqin, or even the entire Lian family, no one was as important as his Tao of Ascension. Ling Shuqin sees that he has actually been coaxed by Mayan's few words to not make a move. Her heart is filled with anger and hatred, her eyes are surging with killing intent. Even Yuma, that little bitch, had stirred up trouble the moment she came back. She should not have been careless and let this little slut go. Just when Ling Shuqin couldn't hold it in any longer and wanted to reveal her true nature, Ling Yuma let go of Lian Yunxiang and even dragged her up from the ground. Hee, it's just a joke. Sister Yunxiang, why do you look so frightened? Lian Yunxiang couldn't stop trembling. At this moment, in her eyes, Lian Yunxiang is a lunatic. That's right, she was originally one of the unfettered 7 demons. She heard that the unfettered 7 demons kill without batting an eye. They could even kill all the men in Fusang City, let alone her. This woman is a lunatic. Thinking of this, Lian Yunxiang trembles even more fiercely. Chapter 27:12. Ling Yuma, this lunatic, too. Ling Yuma's smile grew brighter. She approached Lian Yunxiang and said slowly, Sister Yunxiang, do you remember what you said to me while stepping on my chest before I left the Lian clan? Ha, your mother was defeated by my mother, and so are you. The Ling clan and everything is mine. I still remember every single word of what I said back then. Don't worry, we have a long way to go. I will return it to you slowly, little by little. Without waiting for Lian Yunxiang's response, the Xiaoyao 7 left for the backyard of the Lian clan fortress. When the 7 of them were far away, Lian Yunxiang suddenly screamed and fell into Ling Shuqin's arms. Lunatic! Lunatic! Mother, that woman is a lunatic. Chase her away from me, hurry up and chase her away from me. I don't want to see her again for even a day. Ling Shuqin's expression was extremely ugly. Because she saw Liang Rui and Liang Jinrong looking at Lian Yunxiang with an indescribable expression. She stood up and forced a smile, wanting to say something. Liang Jinrong cupped his hands at Lian Xing and said, Brother Lian, it seems like your family is in troubled times. I think we should postpone the marriage between Rui and Yunxiang. Lian Xing was stunned. What do you mean, Brother Liang? Liang Jinrong hesitated for a moment before saying, in fact, Rui's marriage was arranged by Yumo. It was only because of what happened to Fairy Ruolin and Yumo's disappearance that it was changed to Yunxiang. But now that Yumo is back, the marriage should be considered at length. Hearing Liang Jinrong's words, Ling Shuqin's expression darkened. Lian Yunxiang was completely dumbfounded. She looked at Liang Rui in disbelief. Brother Rui, didn't you say that you would marry me soon? Brother Rui, hurry up and tell me, will our wedding date change? Hurry up and tell me, okay? Liang Rui looked embarrassed. He did not answer Lian Yunxiang's question, but cupped his hands at Lian Xing. Uncle Lian, my father and I will be leaving first. Brother Lian, goodbye. No, Brother Rui, don't go. Lian Yunxiang cried and threw herself in front of Lian Xing. Dad, quickly tell the Liang family not to break off the engagement. I like Brother Rui. Who does Lian Yuma think she is? Why did she steal my fiancé as soon as she came back? Father, you. That's enough. Lian Xing impatiently waved her hand away. Look at you now, what do you look like? If you can't keep Liang Rui's heart, you can only blame yourself for being incompetent. As he spoke, he ignored Lian Yunxiang and left with a flick of his sleeves. Although Lian Xing was infuriated by Ling Yuma's unruly attitude, however, Ling Yuma was his daughter after all. With a famous daughter, he naturally had face when he walked out. So he didn't care at all which daughter of his the Liang clan wanted to unite by marriage with. When Lien Yunxiang saw that Lien Xing had left her behind, she collapsed to the ground and burst into tears. "All right, stop crying," Ling Shuqin said sternly. "Is that all you've got? What did I teach you?" Lien Yunxiang looked at Ling Shuqin with red eyes. She sobbed and said while trembling, "Mom, that Ling Yuma is really crazy. She will kill me. She will really kill me. Mom, can you drive this little bitch away?" Ling Shuqin sneered. The light in her eyes was sinister and treacherous. Her low voice echoed in the empty room. "How is it enough to drive her away? I was too soft-hearted in the past, which gave this little bitch a chance to turn the tables." Chapter 27:13. Loyal servant Ling Gang 1. This time, since this little slut has delivered herself to the door, then don't blame me for being impolite. Since Fusang City didn't bury this mother and daughter, then I, Ling Shuqin, will personally send them on their way. When Mu Yan's group almost finished eating all the purple smoke fruits in the backyard of the Lien family, the little cold bamboo park was finally cleaned. Ling Shuqin's hair was a bit messy at this time, and her clothes were stained with dust. She didn't look as graceful and imposing as the mistress of the Lien family. Instead, she looked a bit embarrassed. "Yuma, the little cold bamboo park has been cleaned, you can bring your fellow apprentices in to live." She looked at Ling Yuma with loving and gentle eyes. "I haven't touched any of the things that big sister left in the little cold bamboo park. Believe me, I really hope that big sister can come back safely." After Ling Shuqin left, Ling Yuma sneered, "She's really putting on an act for 10 years, being flexible. No wonder my mother was deceived by her pitiful appearance." Chu Moli suddenly chuckled. "Just now in the hall, you almost completely shed all pretense of cordiality with her, and even hit her daughter. But then, she really cleaned your mother's house herself. Really, a bit interesting. Fourth sister, don't underestimate this woman." Mu Yan continued Chu Moli's words and slowly said, "Her cultivation is very high, and she has a magic treasure that conceals her aura. I can't detect it clearly, but she's definitely not just at the nascent soul stage." Ling Yuma gritted her teeth. If she didn't have a bit of ability, how could she hook up with my father? How could she get involved with Willow Valley City, and finally make my mother beyond redemption while she herself escaped unscathed? Thinking of Ling Wolin's suffering in Fusang City all these years, Ling Yuma went crazy with hatred. If she could, she really wanted to directly dismember Ling Shuqin, that slut's body, into 10,000 pieces. Mu Yan patted Ling Yuma's shoulder. "Fourth sister, don't worry. Although this woman is good, she's still far from our abnormal third brother." "That's right, I haven't seen third brother make a move, and he didn't make people live a life worse than death." Chu Moli. "I'll take it as you guys praising me, hee hee." Just then, the sound of footsteps and noise came from outside the house. Miss, are you really back?" Ling Yuma walked out of the house and saw 3 people entering the courtyard. The one in the lead was an old nanny who was the fastest to rush over. The moment she entered the door, she pounced over and grabbed Ling Yuma's hand. Her tears could no longer stop falling. "It's young miss. It's really young miss who's back. Little miss, how have you been all these years? Have you suffered?" Ling Yuma's eyes were also slightly red. She reached out to wipe away the tears on her face and said softly, "Nurse Lu, I'm sorry for making you worry. I've had a good life these years." Mississippi, behind Nurse Lu, was a young woman dressed in an emerald green dress. Her eyes were also red, but she did not pounce over like Nurse Lu. Instead, she slowly bent her body and bowed to Ling Yuma. "This servant Kai Lu greets young miss. Miss, to be able to see you again, this servant's heart is at ease." Beside the young woman stood an ordinary-looking man with a tall stature. His expression wasn't as excited as Nurse Lu and Kai Lu, but his eyes were also filled with a sparkling excitement as he looked at Leng Yuma. After Kai Lu finished paying her respects, the man knelt down on one knee and deeply kowtowed. He said in a hoarse voice, "This servant Leng Gang greets young miss." Chapter 27:14. Loyal servant Leng Gang, 2, asking for votes. Leng Yuma's pupils constricted. At this moment, Lu Momo was already touching Leng Yuma's face and hands, nagging non-stop, "Young miss has lost weight, lost weight. Have you had a hard time these past few years? It's all Lu Momo's fault, I didn't even know you left. I should have followed you to take care of you." Leng Yuma grabbed Lu Momo's hand and changed the topic. "The three of you are..." She didn't finish her words, but senior servant Lu understood. She sighed softly. That year, after young Miss Madam's incident, more than half of Madam's servants ran away. Only those of us who were with Madam all the time suspected that something was amiss. After that, even young Miss left. Madam's direct descendants had a hard time in the Leng family. A large number of servants ran to Leng Shuqin, and in the end, only the three of us were left. Leng Yuma's gaze sharpened. "Did Leng Shuqin make things difficult for you?" "Not at all." Lu Momo shook her head and said disdainfully, "That woman is very good at pretending. If she mistreated the three of us, wouldn't it give others an excuse? She didn't even care about the three of us, so naturally, she wouldn't purposely deal with us." Kai Lu said angrily, "Although she didn't purposely deal with us, she allowed those servants to embezzle our food and cultivation resources. When Brother Leng was injured, I asked someone to get some pills, but those snobbish servants refused to give them to me." Leng Gang hugged Kai Lu and patted her lightly. "I'm fine, as long as young Miss is back." Leng Yuma squinted her eyes and glanced at Leng Gang and Kai Lu. Looking at Kai Lu's attire, these two were obviously married. Then, did Kai Lu know what Leng Gang did that year? Looking at Leng Gang, if not for Hong Mian's testimony, Leng Yuma almost believed that he was a loyal servant to her mother. In reality, how could she doubt it? Lu Momo, Leng Gang, and Hong Mian were the only three people her mother brought out from the Yunling Leng family. They were willing to follow her and never return to the Yunling Leng family. In the entire Lian family fort, Leng Ruolin trusted not Lian Xing but the three of them. But who would have thought that Leng Gang, who looked like a loyal servant, would actually plot against her mother behind her back and put the heart lock on her mother's hand, ultimately consigning her to eternal damnation? Thinking to this point, Leng Yuma's eyes turned cold, the killing intent around her unconsciously overflowed. Kai Lu, who was originally close to her, jumped in fright and staggered a step back. "Miss, what's wrong?" Leng Yuma comes back to her senses and turns to look at Mu Yen and Chu Moli. He quickly adjusted his emotions. She grabbed Nanny Lu's hand and said hoarsely, "Nanny Lu, I've already rescued my mother from Fusang City. My mother was framed back then. Today, I returned to the Lian family castle to seek justice for my mother." Nanny Lu was stunned at first, then she was wild with joy. "Madam is back. Where is she? How has she been all these years?" Leng Yuma's heart ached like it was on fire, and she could not help but tear up. She described the scene she had seen in Fusang City. "In order to protect my mother, Aunt Hong had already died many years ago." Leng Yuma choked with sobs. "My mother had suffered too much shock these past few years. She lost all her cultivation and her mind was muddled. She didn't even recognize me. Do you know how to cure the watering verse?" Chapter 27:15. Loyal servant Leng Gang, 3, what? How could this be? My poor miss, in the end, who's the one that dares to do this to miss? Lu Momo wails, forgetting to call Ling Wolan Furin, and calls her by her old title. Ling Yuma pacifies her, Momo, don't worry. Although my mother's injury is serious, my junior sister's medical skills are also very good. My mother has been treated along the way, and she has already begun to show signs of recovery. She even recognized me some time ago. As long as she's given a little more time, she'll definitely recover completely. As she says this, Ling Yuma turns to look at Ling Gang. But this man is still expressionless, not letting out the slightest trace. Really shrewd. Good acting. Lu Momo is overjoyed, really. Can Miss really cure it? Which genius doctor is your junior sister? We must properly reward her with a lot of money. Mayan slowly steps forward, revealing a shallow smile on her face. Lu Momo is treating me like an outsider. My fourth sister's mother is equal to my family, how could I ask for any reward? However, Lu Momo stares blankly when she sees her, and her face shows a suspicious expression. Such a young girl, she looks even more tender and beautiful than her little miss, like a delicate flower. Does she really have superb medical skills? Mayan seems to have seen through her suspicions. With a turn of her hand, the Tian Mo Chin appears in her hand. Her slender fingers, as white as jade, lightly pluck the strings. Art of Qi Huang activates. Invisible threads penetrate into Lu Momo's body, cleansing her whole body. Lu Momo immediately lets out a comfortable sigh. Her eyes are half closed, and her face is filled with enjoyment, muddle-headed. When the sound of the qin disappears, she slowly comes back to her senses. When she uses her spiritual power to inspect her body, she suddenly turns pale with fright. The damaged meridians in my body are all healed. My joints don't hurt anymore. How could there be such a magical medical skill in this world? Just playing the qin a few times, and she's actually cured her old illness. Lu Momo suddenly thinks of something. Could it be that you're from Mula Pavilion? Mula Pavilion. What is that place? Mu Yan was puzzled, but she only lightly shook her head on the surface. She gently smiled and said, I am responsible for treating fourth senior sister's mother. The injury on her divine soul is difficult to cure, but it is not impossible. I believe that Madame Leng will wake up soon. At this moment, Nanny Lu had no doubts. A divine doctor who could cure her by playing the zither would naturally be able to cure her young miss. God bless us, God bless us. Nurse Lu grabbed Leng Yuma's hand, crying and laughing at the same time. Young miss is a good person, young miss is also a good person, good people will definitely be rewarded. By the way, where's miss? Quickly bring this old servant to see her. Leng Yuma shook her head, Grandma Lu, don't be anxious. Back then, my mother was taken away by Willow Valley City because someone from the Lien family castle framed her. As long as this person isn't found, I can't bring my mother back to the Lien family. Otherwise, what if she gets framed again? Mu Yen smiled and said, Fourth senior sister, why bother? Your mother's mind will wake up soon. At that time, the person who put on the bracelet in Fusang City for her will naturally be clear. Don't you think so? When Mu Yen finished speaking, Ling Gang's brows finally twitched. But it was only for a moment before he returned to normal. Chapter 27:16. Lien Yunxiang rushing to be abused. 1. Madam, the people you asked me to arrange have been sent to Cold Bamboo Garden. Ling Shuqin narrowed her eyes. Even Yuma and the others didn't suspect anything. These are the old people who followed Ling Wolin back then. What's more, the three of them have been ostracized by the Lien family for the past few years. Even if Yuma suspects anyone, she wouldn't suspect them. However, I don't understand why you need to mobilize so many people just to deal with that little bitch Yuma. Back then, with Ling Wolin's cultivation and background, didn't she still lose to you, madam? What kind of storm can you all cause? That chess piece was prepared by you just in case to deal with the Ling family. Isn't it too much of a pity to use it now? Ling Shuqin looked at her indifferently. Shuanghuan, don't play with your little tricks in front of me. If I remember correctly, your daughter, Ling Yuyao, was ruined by the unfettered 7 devils and disappeared in the end, right? I can understand your desire for revenge, but these 7 brats are definitely not as simple as you think. If you dare to ruin my plans, don't blame me for being impolite. Ling Shuanghuan hurriedly bowed and knelt down under Ling Shuqin's gaze. I don't dare. I don't dare. Ling Shuanghuan walked out of the room in fear and then heaved a sigh of relief. Then, her face twisted, revealing a resentful expression. Her daughter Ling Yuyao was her only flesh and blood. All these years, Ling Shuanghuan had thought of ways to purify her daughter's spirit root with the best elixirs, finally making her the proud disciple of the Flow Moon sect master. She even entered the outer sect of the Dragon Ascension Academy. Such a daughter was supposed to have a meteoric rise in her career, bringing her along with her to live a good life. Who knew that she would suddenly receive news that the Flow Moon sect was defeated and her daughter Ling Yuyao was ruined in the Tianguang ruins? Ling Shuanghuan hurried to the East Continent, but there was no trace of Ling Yuyao. Even her sister-in-law Feng Yu was nowhere to be found. All of a sudden, Ling Shuanghuan lost her daughter, and all her efforts over the years were for naught. How could she not hate? How could she not hate? Who was to blame for all this? Naturally, she had to blame the unfettered 7 devils who had caused the Flowing Moon sect to fall apart and caused her daughter's reputation to be ruined. Especially that female devil, Jun Mayan. But unfortunately, after the Deer Cry banquet ended, these 7 people disappeared without a trace. Even if Ling Shuanghuan wanted to take revenge, she couldn't find anyone. Now, these 7 people actually came looking for him. Ling Shuanghuan wanted nothing more than to tear them into pieces. Shuanghuan, stop right there. Just as she was lost in thought, a tender voice interrupted her thoughts. Ling Shuanghuan turned around and saw Lian Yunxiang, whose face was still swollen. She immediately bowed and said, "Greetings, young Mississippi." Lian Yunxiang said, "I heard everything you said to Mom in the room just now." His mother was too cautious and careful when she did things. Right now, I just want to tear that bitch Lian Yumo apart. Ling Shuanghuan, don't you want to join hands with me and let those 7 bitches die miserably? Ling Shuanghuan was stunned. Did she want to? Of course I do. Even in his dreams. But, Madam had just warned us that if we spoil her good deed, tch, as long as we get things done, Mom will only praise you and me. Lian Yunxiang snorted disdainfully, then her face twisted. The Liang family sent back the marriage certificate this morning, but Brother Rui actually wants to break off the engagement with me for that bitch Lian Yumo. Why? How am I not comparable to that bitch? Chapter 27:17. Lian Yunxiang, who is looking for abuse, too. Lian Yunxiang gritted her teeth, and the hatred in her eyes surged like stormy waves. Mother's method can kill that bitch, but how can I ruin her reputation? I want Brother Rui to see how shameless this bitch is, just like her mother, Ling Wolin. Ha ha ha, this way, I can get rid of the hatred in my heart. Ling Shuanghuan, I remember that you were the main reason why we were able to plot against Ling Wolin. Plus, you can even use the chess piece by Yumo's side. As long as the 2 of us work together, we won't have to worry about the unfettered 7 devils. Lian Yunxiang stared at Ling Shuanghuan and tried her best to incite, what's more, I'm my mother's biological daughter. With me as your guarantor, are you really afraid that my mother will blame us? Ling Shuanghuan's expression changed. Miss, please tell me how to deal with the 7 bitches first. Late at night, outside the cold bamboo garden, 2 black shadows met silently under the moonlight. You just need to pour this bottle of medicine into their food and you'll complete the task. Is this really the madam's order? Oh, are you questioning me? I'm warning you, if you don't complete this task, you should know very well what will happen to you. The shadow hesitated for a moment, but finally took the porcelain bottle and entered the door. Ling Shuanghuan quietly waited in the bushes, anxiously looking into the cold bamboo garden. Finally, there was a goo-goo-goo sound. She was overjoyed, it was a success. The madam's chess piece was really useful. Now she could only look forward to the dirty and messy scene of the whole room tomorrow, when they were all in each other's arms. At that time, the entire Changyang city would know just what a bunch of disgusting bastards the so-called unfettered seven were. Ling Shuanghuan slowly left in silent laughter. Early the next morning, Liang Rui hurriedly landed at the back door of the Lian house. Seeing Ling Shuanghuan waiting outside, he immediately asked, "Where's Yumo? Did she really ask me to meet her?" Ling Shuanghuan smiled, "Young Master Liang, please follow me. Miss Yumo has been waiting for you at the cold bamboo garden for a long time." Liang Rui's face lit up with joy. His pace couldn't even be described as walking, but rather as galloping. When they arrived at the entrance of the small cold bamboo garden, they saw that it was crowded with people, and it was noisy. Kai Lu stood at the door, her face pale as she kept pushing people out. "You can't go in. Miss and the others are still resting inside, none of you are allowed to go in. I just heard a strange sound coming from inside. Why are you stopping us?" "That's right, aren't we just concerned about Miss Yumo? What on earth happened for it to make such a sound?" Ha, this voice sounds familiar. I still can't forget that erotic scene in the master bedroom back then. Shut up, do you want to die? You even dare to mention this matter. Aren't you afraid of Master? Master! Master! A shrill scream interrupted the discussion. Everyone turned their heads to look and immediately fell silent. They saw Lian Xing and Ling Shuqin, who was holding his arm, walking towards them quickly. Lian Xing walked in front of Kai Lu with a sullen face and said sternly, "What happened?" Kai Lu glanced at the house behind her, and her body trembled. No, nothing happened. Ah. Chapter 27:18. Lian Yunxiang, 3, begging for votes. Just as Kai Lu finished her sentence, they heard a sound that made people blush and their hearts beat faster. Lian Xing's expression changed. His anger made the muscles on his face tremble. He kicked Kai Lu's abdomen, "Get lost." Kai Lu rolled on the ground, but refused to move away. Master, you can't go in. You can't go in." Ling Shuqin frowned, a puzzled look on her face. "Kai Lu, what are you doing? What's going on inside?" "That's right." Ling Shuanghuan hid the smugness in her eyes and said loudly, "Miss Yuma had an appointment with young Master Liang in the morning, but young Master Liang came a bit late and only arrived now. Why didn't Miss Yuma come out to greet him?" Saying that, she turned to look at Liang Rui apologetically. "Young Master Liang, please wait a moment, I'll go and invite Miss Yuma out." Liang Rui's expression was a bit ugly, his eyes staring at the closed door, the veins on his forehead throbbing. At this moment, Lian Xing was enraged to the extreme. He sent Kai Lu flying with a vicious kick. Following that, he struck out with his palm. With a loud bang, the wooden door shattered into pieces and turned into fine powder. As the wooden door broke and the dust dissipated, the sound and scene in the room appeared in front of everyone. Ling Shuanghuan turned around with a smug look. However, when she saw the scene inside, her eyes suddenly widened. The resentment on her face turned into disbelief and horror. How could this be? Yunxiang! Ling Shuqin screamed and rushed over to hug her daughter. Beside Lien Yunxiang was a man. Everyone in the Lien family fort knew this man. It was Lien Xing's younger brother, Lien Ying. Everyone who saw this scene was dumbfounded. From the sound they heard and the scene they saw after the wooden door broke, even a fool knew what happened inside the room. However, it was precisely because they knew what had happened that the entire cold bamboo garden was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. Everyone couldn't help but secretly look at Lien Xing. His expression couldn't be described as ugly. The spiritual energy around him surged like a storm, forming a whirlpool. His red eyes stared at Lien Yunxiang and Lien Yingying, who were still unconscious. Vile creatures, vile creatures. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. No one could ruin the reputation of the Lien family. No one could stop his 1,000-year hegemony. There was no one. Master! Master, don't do it! Ling Shuqin screamed and threw herself at Lien Xing, wailing, Master, Yunxiang is your biological daughter. How could you kill her? She was set up. Yes, she must have been set up. Ling Shuqin hugged her unconscious daughter and roared in rage, on the verge of breaking down. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something and came back to her senses. She screamed, Lien Yuma, yes, it must be that bitch Lien Yuma who harmed my daughter. Lien Yuma, get out here. I'll say it again, my name is not Lien Yuma. A leisurely female voice came from behind the crowd. 7 neatly dressed boys and girls slowly walked over. Ling Yuma, who was dressed in red, raised the corner of her mouth and looked at the hysterical Ling Shuqin. Her smile was full of ridicule. Hey, Ling Shuqin, you finally stopped acting like a kind stepmother. Look, isn't this shrewish look good now? Real, it suits you. Evil will have evil retribution. It's not that there won't be retribution, it's just that the time hasn't come. Chapter 27:19. It was ordered by First Miss 1, Ling Shuqin, was it you? Did you harm my Yunxiang? What did you do to my Yunxiang? Master. Believe me. Yunxiang must have been framed. It was Lien Yuma who harmed her. She always thought that I was the one who killed her mother and hated me in her heart, so she took revenge on my daughter. Otherwise, why would Yunxiang appear here when she was in her own room? Lien Xing's sharp eyes looked at Ling Yuma. Did you really do such a thing? Ling Yuma sneered, Master Lien, you should at least have some evidence to slander us. The 7 of us left early in the morning, and this cold bamboo garden is just a temporary residence, so we couldn't lock the door, so we only let Kai Lu guard the yard. Why would Yunxiang be here, and why would she do such a thing in our yard? How would I know? If you want to know what happened, why don't you ask Kai Lu who is guarding the door? Everyone's gazes immediately focused on Kai Lu. When the door opened and she saw the scene inside, Kai Lu's face turned pale. Her whole body trembled uncontrollably. When she saw everyone looking at her, her legs went soft, and she knelt down. I didn't do it, I don't know anything. At this moment, Lien Xing recalled how Kai Lu had desperately tried to stop him from entering, and he was instantly enraged. He abruptly raised his hand and fiercely swung his palm through the air. When he entered the door, Lien Xing kicked Kai Lu, but he didn't use any spiritual energy. So Kai Lu rolled around awkwardly, but in fact, she wasn't injured. But at this moment, this slap directly hit her face so quickly that the bones in her face emitted a cracking sound. Her teeth loosened and fell. Kai Lu let out a mournful scream and fell to the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Slut, why aren't you telling me what's going on? Lien Xing glared at her angrily and said sternly, was it you, the audacious lowly slave, who framed Miss and Second Master? I wouldn't dare. How could this servant dare? Kai Lu wailed loudly, ignoring the blood and pain on her face as she knelt on the ground and kowtowed. "Tell me, what's going on?" Kai Lv's eyes were red, and her body was trembling non-stop. Her gaze swept over Ling Shuqin, who had a gloomy expression and was glaring at her, and she shivered all over. Finally, his gaze landed on Lang Yuma. When Lian Xing saw that Kai Lu didn't speak, he was even more infuriated. A terrifying pressure was emitted from his body as he attacked Kai Lu. "Slut, are you still not going to say it?" Kai Lu vomited a mouthful of blood and did not dare to stop. She cried loudly, "I'll speak, I'll speak. It was eldest miss ordered me to do this." Senior servant Lu, who had just heard the commotion and rushed to the little cold bamboo garden, pounced on Kai Lv when she heard this. "What nonsense are you talking about? How could Miss instigate you? Why would you accuse Miss? Tell me, why did you wrongly accuse little Miss?" Kai Lv cried and revealed a frightened expression. "Senior servant Lu, I didn't want to betray eldest Mississippi. I did what eldest Miss ordered me to do, but I don't want to die. I still want to live a good life with Brother Lang. Eldest Miss, I'm sorry. Kai Lv is afraid of death. Kai Lv let you down." Chapter 27:20. It's eldest Miss's instigation, too. I knew it was you. Ling Shuqin screams, tightly hugging the unconscious Lian Yunxiang in her arms. Her tears fall like rain, her liver and intestines are cut into pieces. "Lian Yuma, you're so cruel. No matter how much Yunxiang offended you, she's still your sister. How can you treat her like this? Don't you think that I harmed your mother? Come and kill me, come and find me if you want revenge. Why did you harm my Yunxiang? Boo-hoo, my poor Yunxiang. Xingji, you must seek justice for our Yunxiang. She was framed and ended up in this state. How will she live in the future?" Ling Shuqin's weeping was truly sincere, filled with anger and heartache. Especially when she sees Liang Rui frowning at this farce, she gnashes her teeth in hatred. Today, this scene was seen by so many people. Even if she shreds that slut Lian Yuma, her daughter Yunxiang can only be crippled. She had an affair with her own uncle, so what if she proves that she was framed? Will the Liang family still want her? Will she still be able to marry into a big family in the future? Thinking of this, the hatred in Ling Shuqin's eyes surges like magma. She forcefully suppresses the resentment on her face, making the crying expression on her face even more miserable and sorrowful, making people feel pity for her. Sure enough, Lian Xing's suppressed anger erupted in an instant. "Evil creature, did you come back to the Lian family just to stir up trouble? You won't even let your own sister off, are you even human?" The pressure around Lian Xing is like an avalanche, pressing down on Ling Yuma. Ling Yuma's complexion is slightly pale, fine beads of sweat appear on her forehead. But her face doesn't reveal the slightest bit of panic or fear. Instead, she withstands the pressure of a crossing tribulation cultivator and walks towards Lian Xing. Mayan and the others stand behind her, neither helping her resist, nor showing a worried expression. It's as if they believe that their fourth senior sister will never be defeated by this mere pressure. When Ling Yuma arrives in front of Lian Xing, his face finally shows shock. He's a crossing tribulation cultivator, even though it's not enough, he has the bonus of the ice jade marrow bone. However, he was a tribulation transcendence cultivator after all. The pressure emitted by a tribulation transcendence expert could cause a leaving aperture realm cultivator to kneel on the ground in fear. But his daughter was only in her 20s at the nascent soul stage. Under his pressure, his body did not even shake, and he even walked in front of him. Ling Yuma looked at Lian Xing's shocked face, then looked at Ling Shuqin. Finally, his gaze landed on Kai Lv, who was in a sorry state. "Kai Lv, you're saying that I ordered you to do this. Then tell me, what did I order you to do?" Kai Lu looked to the side and shrunk her shoulders as if she was afraid of Leng Yuma's threat. She said with a trembling voice, "Eldest young miss, you asked me to lure second young miss and second master to the cold bamboo garden separately and then drug them. This servant originally didn't dare, but miss, you said that they went too far, humiliating you on the day you returned to the Lien family, and even humiliating the former madam. This servant also served the former madam, and my heart couldn't bear it, so I agreed to help Mississippi. But this servant didn't expect that Mrs. Methods were actually so insidious, and also attracted so many people, including young Master Liang. This servant felt that this was too much, and my heart was really scared." Chapter 27-21. The truth will come to light. Does it feel good? Boo-hoo, eldest miss, this servant really didn't want to betray you. When the onlookers heard Kai Lu's words, almost all of them believed what she said. At this moment, everyone looks at Leng Yuma with eyes full of fear and disgust. They had long heard that the unfettered seven devils were vicious and merciless, but they didn't expect that they would be this ruthless. Many people heard Lien Yunxiang and Lianing insulting Leng Yuma a few days ago. But at that time, Leng Yuma ruthlessly retaliated against them. Even if she really couldn't take it, she shouldn't have used such a sinister scheme, right? In this way, Lien Yunxiang was directly destroyed, and the reputation of the Lien family fort was directly destroyed. Under everyone's criticism, Ling Shuqin and Lien Xing's murderous gazes. Leng Yuma's expression was still the same as usual. She lightly smiled, "Kai Lu, my mother and I really underestimated you. In such a short time, you can think of a way to deal with it. The logic of the whole line is so clear. Isn't being a servant burying you too much? Eldest miss, this servant doesn't know what you're talking about. This servant didn't say a single lie. If you feel wronged, you can say it and confront this servant one by one." Leng Yuma sinisterly smiled. What this old lady hates the most is to reason with a group of people with a belly full of evil tricks like you. According to this old lady's opinion, I will directly cut you down with a knife. But this is clearly not in line with my third senior brother and little junior sister's aesthetics of a tooth for a tooth, an eye for an eye. Everyone was stunned by what she said. They didn't understand what Leng Yuma was trying to say. Only the 6 people of the unfettered sect behind her had a leisurely expression, showing an expression of watching a good show. Luo Yu even took out some fruits and sent them to Mayan. The two ate while watching, feeling very uncomfortable. Kai Lu frowned. "Eldest miss, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't quibble anymore." Leng Yuma didn't wait for her to finish speaking and grabbed the air. The next moment, several yellow talismans flew into her hand. Leng Yuma pinched the talisman and shook it, making a slight cracking sound. "Do you recognize this thing?" Kai Lu's pupils suddenly shrank. There should be no one who doesn't recognize the photographic talisman, right? Leng Yuma chuckled and turned around with the talisman paper in her hand. "My third senior brother is a very insecure person. Every time he goes to an unfamiliar place, he likes to have comprehensive protection and surveillance. As for my junior sister, drawing talismans is as easy as doodling. Therefore, from the day we entered the small cold bamboo garden, the entire courtyard was covered with photographic talismans. Everything that happened inside and outside the small cold bamboo garden these past few days was clearly recorded by these talismans. Kai Lu, do you want to take a look? The plot inside is very exciting." Kai Lu's eyes widened, and all the blood drained from her face. She fell to the ground, her body trembling uncontrollably. He couldn't help but look at Leng Wushuang and Leng Shuqin, who were not far from him. Leng Yuma smiled faintly and activated the first talisman. The scene was of the two of them meeting in the middle of the night to discuss how to drug Leng Yuma and the others. How to attract all the people of the Lien family fort in the early hours of the morning, and how to let Liang Rui witness a wonderful scene. The bright moonlight shone on the two people's faces. They were Lang Wushuang and Kai Lu. Chapter 27-22. The truth will come to light. 2. Asking for votes, the entire cold bamboo garden fell into a dead silence. Ling Shuqin's crying expression froze on her face. She turned to her most trusted personal maid, Lang Wushuang, with a murderous look. Lang Wushuang was scared out of her wits when she realized that things were out of her expectation. She couldn't hold it anymore and knelt on the ground. Madam, I didn't. Before she finished, Ling Yuma activated the second photo talisman. This time, it was Lian Yunxiang and Lian Ningying. The night was getting darker, and the sky in the east was getting brighter. Lian Yunxiang led the drunken Lian Yingying to the cold bamboo garden. Second uncle, even that bitching ma humiliated you like that, and the unfettered 7 devils beat you like that. They even knocked out so many of your teeth. Can you bear this? No. No. Lian Yingying shouted with a red face, I want those little bastards to die a horrible death. He, second uncle, you saw the alluring killing god of the unfettered 7 devils. She's really beautiful. Second uncle, you've played with so many women, but have you ever seen such a beauty? Don't you want to have a taste? Lian Yingying thought of the beautiful and peerless girl who walked in slowly. He couldn't help but swallow his saliva. His eyes were filled with greed and excitement. Second uncle, don't worry and come in with me. As your niece, I will definitely fulfill your wish. The two walked into the east room of the cold bamboo garden. Then, there was a scream. Where is she? How could this be? Didn't Lang Wushuang say it was a success? Second uncle, what are you doing? Let me go, Brother Rui, Yunxiang likes you so much. Can you hold me tight? Puchi. Ling Yuma withdrew her spiritual power, and the image slowly disappeared. She looked down at Lang Wushuang and Kai Lu, who were pale with fright. How is it? Is this plot interesting enough? How could this be? How could this be? Kai Lu couldn't bear it anymore and screamed, I clearly saw you eat it with my own eyes. Ling Yumo sneered, you want to make us delirious with just a little hallucinogen. Why don't you go and find out who my junior sister is? The so-called strongest support master could increase one's combat strength and remove negative statuses. The sound of the zither could clear one's mind and clear one's heart. Of course, if the effects of the hallucinogen were strong enough, just relying on support skills would definitely not be enough. But the problem was that Mu Yen still had another identity. He was the best talisman maker and the best alchemist in the cultivation world, Yap Liang Qin. Bringing a mere hallucinogen in front of the Medicine King's disciple, if it wasn't displaying one slight skill in front of an expert, then what was? You already knew, you already suspected me. Kai Lu's face was filled with despair as she screamed hysterically, Why? Why? I've been following Madam. Why would you suspect me? This time, Ling Yuma did not even bother to reply. A person who could play tricks in front of her perverted third senior brother hasn't been born yet. Everything finally came to light. The rage in Lian Xing's heart was simply indescribable. He waved his hand and sternly said, Come, take these 2 bitches away. I don't want them to die so easily, do you hear me? Master, spare me, spare me. Madam, save me, save me. I'm doing things for Miss. Madam. Slapped in the face, shamelessly asking for a vote, moi. Chapter 27-23. Asking her to marry Ancestor Heshan. 1. You already knew, you already suspected me. Kai Lu screamed hysterically, her face full of despair. Why? Why? I've been following madam, why would you suspect me? Ling Yuma didn't even bother to answer this time. Someone who could play tricks in front of her perverted third senior brother had yet to be born. Everything finally came to light. The rage in Lian Xing's heart couldn't be described with words. He waved his hand and said sternly, "Someone, take these two bitches away. I don't want them to die easily, do you hear me? Master, spare me, spare me. Madam, save me, save me. I'm doing things for Miss. Madam." Ling Shuqin bit her lips tightly as she watched her two trusted subordinates being dragged away. Traces of blood seeped out from between her teeth. Ling Yuma slowly walked to her side and whispered in her ear. "What? Are you angry, desperate, and want to tear me into pieces? But what you've endured today is not even a tenth of what my mother went through in the past. So, Ling Shuqin, don't worry. My revenge has just begun. Back then, you owed my mother and everything you owed me. I will take them all back one by one until you have nothing left and are beyond redemption." Lian Xing strictly ordered everyone not to spread the news of what happened in Cold Bamboo Garden. However, on the second day, the erotic story of Lian family fort's second master Lian Ning and Miss Lian Yunxiang was still spreading throughout Changyang City. For a moment, the entire Lian family fort became the laughingstock of Changyang City. "Daddy, Daddy, I don't want to marry Ancestor Heshan as a concubine. Daddy, I beg you, I like Brother Rui, I want to marry into the Liang family." Sob sob sob, Lian Yunxiang hugged Lian Xing's thigh, crying her heart out. However, her father, who usually doted on her, mercilessly kicked her away and glared at her angrily. "You don't want to marry. You did such a shameless thing and lost the face of our Lian family. What right do you have to not want to marry her? There's no need to say any more. Although Ancestor Crane Mountain is old, his background is deep, and he treats his concubines generously. Marry him and make up for your mistakes, and fight for the benefits of our Lian family." After saying that, he turned around and left, completely ignoring Lian Yunxiang's cries. "Mother, mother." Even Yunxiang's eyes were red from crying, "Mother, mother, can you save me? I'm the eldest daughter of the Lian family fort. How can I be the concubine of an old man?" Ling Shuqin's face darkened as she looked at her coldly. "What did I warn you before? Told you not to act blindly without thinking, told you not to ruin my plans. But what about you?" He had tried to scheme against Lian Yuma without any skill, but in the end, he had been schemed against. Or with that trash Lian Ning. "I, Ling Shuqin, have lost all face because of you." Lian Yunxiang was trembling all over and could only cry incessantly. "Mother, I was wrong, I was wrong. Can you please save your daughter? I beg you, please save me." Ling Shuqin took a deep breath, and the anger in her eyes was gradually replaced by coldness. "I underestimated those 7 little bastards. They were able to achieve what they have today and destroy Fu Sang City, so they must have some ability. Yes, it's all Lian Yuma's fault." Lian Yunxiang's eyes were about to pop out, and she screamed, "That bitch is so cruel. She actually used such a sinister scheme against me, and she did it in front of Brother Rui. My whole life was ruined by that bitch." Chapter 27-24. Let her marry Ancestor Heshan in your place, too. Lian Yunxiang didn't think that if she didn't scheme against Len Yuma, she wouldn't have suffered the consequences. "Mother, your daughter's suffering can't be in vain. You must seek justice for your daughter." Whoa. Ling Shuqin took out a talisman from her storage device and slowly lit it. "Mother, what is this?" Ling Shuqin squinted her eyes and didn't speak. After a long time, she said, "Isn't Lian Yu more ruthless? Isn't she sinister? I want to see if Yumal can still be so arrogant when that bitch Ling Wolin falls into my hands. At that time, if I want her to live, she will live. If I want her to die, she will die. If I want her to marry Ancestor Heshan as a concubine, do you think she will agree?" Lian Yunxiang's eyes widened and showed an ecstatic expression. Yes, yes, let Lian Yuma marry Ancestor Heshan. Brother Rui is mine, ha ha ha, mother, you're the best. Ling Shuqin looked at Lian Yunxiang with disgust and said coldly, "If you weren't my daughter, I wouldn't care about a trash like you. If you ruin my business again, don't blame me for being impolite." Cold Bamboo Garden. Ling Gang knelt in front of Ling Yuma, his face ashen. "Miss, kill me. I have let you and Madam down. I actually did not discover that Kai Lu was a spy hidden by Madam's side." Ling Yuma smiled. "You're saying that you and Kai Lu are husband and wife, but you didn't know she was Ling Shuqin's woman?" Ling Gang's eyes turned red. He lowered his head and kowtowed. "I really didn't know. All these years, Madam and Miss were missing, and we didn't dare to leave. In the end, all the people who followed Madam changed their allegiance to Ling Shuqin, only Kai Lu stayed. She told her subordinates that it was because of the affection she had for her subordinates that she had never left them. That's why I married her, but I didn't expect that it was all her plot. It's all because of my negligence that Miss almost fell into danger. If Miss suspects this subordinate, please kill me." Nurse Lu's face was filled with pain as she looked at Ling Gang, then looked at Ling Yuma, and finally could not help but say, "Young Miss, Ling Gang risked his life to save Madam many times, he cannot be a traitor. Please make a wise decision." Ling Yuma nodded and said, "You followed my mother from the Yunlingling clan. It can be said that you are the people my mother trusts the most in this world. If I don't trust you, who can I trust? Uncle Lang, get up quickly." Ling Gang revealed a joyous expression and stood up with Ling Yuma's support. "Thank you for your trust, Miss." Ling Yuma said, "Tomorrow, I will quietly leave the Lien family fortress to visit my mother. You must guard the cold bamboo garden for me. Don't let anyone discover our whereabouts." "Yes, Miss." The next morning, Mu Yan's group of 7 left the Lien family castle silently, arriving at a remote courtyard on the outskirts of Changyang City. This was where Ling Yuma had placed her mother, Ling Wolin. Before leaving, Mu Yan arranged a powerful formation around the small courtyard, and left Chui Lu and Bai Lu to take care of it. Just as they entered the courtyard, they heard a flustered and exasperated voice. "Aya, this is really delicious. If you don't want to eat, I'll eat it." Ling Yuma was startled and jumped into the courtyard. Chapter 27-25. Then we will raise the Lien family. 1. Seeing the old man sitting in front of her mother, snatching her mother's food, Ling Yuma is so angry that she's about to ascend to heaven. Why are you here again? Didn't you say that it's enough to send you to Changyang City to look for relatives? That's not right. How did you find this place? This person is the old man who blackmailed her all the way in Four Symbol City, the one who sold elixirs. The old man eats the delicacies on his plate while grinning. This old man's relatives are too bored. It's still the girl's place that's fun, so I came to nag again. Oh, girl, why are you so fierce? This old man is very timid. If I get scared and get sick, you'll have to support me for a lifetime. Ling Yuma doesn't pay any attention to his unreasonable pestering this time. She says with a calm face, "I don't care how you found this place, but please leave immediately." Saying that, she's going to grab the old man and throw him out. However, just as her hand touches the old man's collar, the old man quivers and falls to the ground. His whole body keeps twitching as he intermittently shouts, "Ouch, it hurts so much, my heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys all hurt. Girl, you're so cruel, how could you hit an old man like me? Are you driving me out to make me sleep on the streets? Boo-hoo-hoo, this old man's life is bitter. I'm already so old, but my daughter doesn't care for me, my son doesn't love me, and my granddaughter doesn't care for me." Ling Yuma's hand freezes in midair, and the corner of her mouth twitches. Who did she hit? She didn't even touch the corner of this old man's clothes, okay? Ling Yuma finds out that her fiery temper really has no way to deal with this old man who's acting like a scoundrel. She can only turn to look at Mayan, junior sister, use the array to throw him out. Mayan smiles, "Fourth sister, forget it. Your mother is bored staying here alone. I think she's a little happier with the old man accompanying her." Ling Yuma stares blankly and turns to look. Only then does she find that her mother is still dull and wooden. But her line of sight was always on the old man's body. When the old man fell to the ground, sparkling and translucent tears actually gathered in her eyes. He was clearly still unconscious, but there seemed to be some sort of instinct surging in the depths of his soul. It was just like how his mother had risked everything to save him in Fusang City. The old man obviously saw the tears in Ling Wulan's eyes. He hurriedly got up from the ground and said with a smile, "It's fine, it's fine. As long as you don't drive me away, this old man will be fine. Here, this dessert tastes good. Try it." As he spoke, the old man fed Ling Wulan a piece of dessert. He didn't expect that Ling Wulan would actually open her mouth and swallow the dessert. The crystal in her eyes had already disappeared and was replaced by a glimmer of brilliance. This time, it was the old man's turn to have tears in his eyes. However, it was only for a moment. He immediately lowered his eyes to hide his gaffe. He grabbed 2 pastries in his hands and threw them into his mouth. He shouted, "Delicious, so delicious." Ling Yuma was just careless and not good at scheming, but that did not mean that she was stupid. At this time, she also saw that something was wrong. Her gaze was deeply fixed on the old man. The old man jumps up and casually wipes the crumbs on his face. He says with a hollow laugh, "Since you don't welcome me, this old man will leave first." However, just as the old man was about to leave, his sleeve was pulled. Chapter 27-26. Let's raise the Lien family to the ground, too. The wooden-looking woman did not have any emotional fluctuations, but her slender fingers tightly grabbed onto his sleeves, like a little girl grabbing onto her father's sleeves to seek a sense of security. The old man's eyes reddened, and after a while, he squeezed out a sentence, "Tomorrow, I'll come and see you again tomorrow." As soon as he said this, Ling Wulan's fingers loosened. The old man rushed out of the door as if he was escaping, and his figure disappeared without a trace. Ling Yuma stared blankly at the direction where he disappeared, and did not come back to her senses for a long time. After the old man left the small courtyard, his figure disappeared in a flash, and when he appeared again, he was already in a desolate valley. His face was still stained with food scraps, and his clothes were tattered. But at this time, he put away the mischievous smile he had in front of Ling Yuma, and his whole body instantly emitted a terrifying pressure. "Come out! Why are you still hiding?" The deep voice carried an undefiable majesty. The empty valley should have no signs of human habitation. However, as soon as the old man's voice fell, 2 figures appeared out of thin air. "Greetings, father." Ling Yiwei and Ling Jishuan bowed one after another. Ling Yaoshan squinted his eyes, and said sternly, "What are you guys doing here instead of staying in Yunling?" Ling Yiwei coughed lightly, "Father, I'm here to do what you're doing." "Little sister, she." Thinking of the expressionless, puppet-like woman in the small courtyard, and then thinking of the news he heard about Fusang City. Lang Yui's nose turned sour, and he could no longer suppress the pain and killing intent in his heart. His little sister was once so lively, so proud. Fairy Roland, whose name shook the world, was the marriage partner of many young talents. But now, she was actually harmed to such a state. Lang Yue choked with sobs. "It's all our fault, I shouldn't have listened to Ling Shuqin. If I had come to see little sister earlier, she wouldn't have suffered so much. Father, I'll go and raise the Lian family now." "Shut up." Lang Yaoshan said coldly, "You have no right to interfere in this matter." He closed his eyes and slowly suppressed the regret in his eyes. That child left the Lian family for her mother and went deep into the tiger's den. She did so much just to get justice for Lin. We old fellows have done nothing. We didn't appear when Lin needed us the most. What right do we have to stand up for her now? Lang Yue hung his head dejectedly. Lang Zhishuan clenched his fists tightly. His eyes were red, but he didn't say a word. Lang Yaoshan glanced at the two of them. Instead of comforting them, a trace of pride appeared on his face. "That child Yuma is too outstanding. I believe that she will definitely be able to avenge her mother. The only thing we can do is to stand behind the child and back her up. If that bastard Lianxing dares to bully my daughter, bully my precious granddaughter." Lang Yue gritted his teeth and continued, "Then we will raise the Lian family to the ground." This time, Lang Yaoshan did not refute. Lang Yuma accompanied Lang Wolin in the side courtyard for most of the day. She could clearly feel that when she was with Lang Wolin, there would be light in Lang Wolin's dull eyes, just like when she saw that old man. Before leaving, Lang Yuma hugged Lang Wolin reluctantly and said softly, "Mother, don't worry. Soon, I will make those who framed you pay a painful price." You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.